Start the show in 20 seconds. Everybody, please keep it in your pants for a minute.
Nope.
What if it's already out of my pants?
Take it out and put it back in and take it back out again.
Put it back in.
All right, here I go. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a very special episode of Hey, Did You See This One? With a special guest, Craig. It's Hey, Did You See This One? Son of a bitch. Why isn't it? Oh, yeah.
Are we recording?
Okay, it's not just that I can't.
Hold on a second.
recording?
Hold on. Hello, everybody, and welcome. What?
Are we recording?
Jason, you have not hit record on Zoom, is what
Thank you.
Kaylin is asking you.
Look, there's a lot going on right now. There's a lot
Recording
going on.
in progress.
Welcome, everybody. We have a special guest. Say hello to all of the viewer, Craig.
Hello, all viewer.
We are going to be closing the Grimoire of Familiar Killers this week. Which I'm excited about because I'm very scared and I'm very spooked. I'm going to be I'm not really. These movies are not scary, in my opinion, which we've talked about at length for the last several weeks. I want to thank everybody who's come by the show. I would like to, at the very end of the show, maybe we'll say what our favorite movie was. Obviously, Craig was only here for the one. He'll say that it's Halloween 2, probably because I think he's just a fan of Halloween 2 in general.
We can get to that later.
I'm also streaming live to TikTok. So TikTok, hello. This is we're doing some trial runs. We're testing out some stuff. But I've been ranting and raving for too long. I'm your host, Jason. I'd like to also introduce Steven. And I'd like to introduce Kaylin, my glorious co-hosts who are with me each and every week. Thank you and welcome to the show. Craig, once again, welcome to the show. So, the Grimoire of Familiar Killers is closing, and we have one trip down to Halloween Town on a special Halloween episode. It's a lot of pre-roll for just trying to get to ask everybody their history with this movie. I'd like to make it a ritual to start with the guest. So, Craig, why don't you give us a little bit of history that you have with this movie?
The first Halloween is my favorite horror movie of all time. So you might expect that Halloween 2 is my favorite horror sequel of all time, but it's probably not. I mean, I've seen the first Halloween dozens of times, and this was probably my third time watching it for your podcast. So that's good enough? Or do you want more? I don't have much more to give.
That's good. So when's the first time you saw
I haven't seen it in about 10, 15 years probably since the last time, other than, a couple days ago when I refreshed myself.
Nice. Can you turn your mic up a little bit too? You're a little
probably
quiet. You're quiet in my ones and my twos. That's what they call it in the.
How's that? Better?
That's much better.
Is that better? Okay, cool.
And if I'll go to Kaylin next, and Steve, if you could check the stream and just see if we sound okay in the stream. Kaylin, why don't you tell us your history with Halloween 2?
My introduction to Halloween 2 was, I believe, 2 years ago during the height of COVID, which I have mentioned with every one of these movies we've done. I was never much of a horror movie fan, like in my younger days. And so during COVID and having watched through everything there was to watch on Netflix, I was eventually like, you know what? Let me check out these horror movies. And I came to the realization that they're actually comedies. And so that was my first experience about 2 years ago.
And Logan was a Western. And
Star Wars is a space opera. This is fantastic. Steve, we'll go to you. I feel like you have a bit of a history with this movie, much like Craig.
Yeah, I mean, just like Craig, I don't think that it's really that masterful as a sequel, unlike something like the second Chucky movie, which I think elevated everything to a degree went to like that maximalist level of almost bordering in Tim Burton territory. This movie, it's not terrible, but it's just sort of more of the same without doing anything mind-blowingly new. You know, it's just kind of bringing the character back to life. So the first time I saw it was in high school. And actually, I think it might have been after high school. I think I had watched the second Rob Zombie movie before I had seen this one. I had seen the original Halloween, and I just didn't watch any of the other ones. And then we went to go see the remakes, and I saw the second Rob Zombie, and I was like, this movie is really mean. Like, they really like to torture the people to death. So I decided to watch the classic Halloween movies. And I don't really have an impactful memory of watching it for the first time. But yeah. So I had seen it, I think, like you said, Craig, I'd seen it maybe once or twice before, but it's not one that I revisit very often. And that's my history.
Cool.
With Halloween 2.
Thank you.
Hypercube.
For me, Craig, I'm sorry to say this, I don't like the first Halloween movie. I think I would have liked it if I had watched it age appropriately, if I liked horror movies as a kid, and it, stuck with me as like an iconic movie. But I only got into horror about whenever The Walking Dead started, and then
10 years ago.
Exactly, and I've told this story on the podcast many times when it comes to horror movies. Before The Walking Dead, I couldn't handle like anything. I just was in a mind prison where I had like a physical aversion to watching anything that could potentially have gore. I didn't even like movies that much because of the potential for something gross to happen. Now, fast forward to now through The Walking Dead, through a lot of legacy television like Game of Thrones, that they've stopped really caring about how gory legacy television can be, prestige television can be. So just slowly chipped away my defenses for that sort of thing. And fast forward to now, we've done a lot of really like brutal movies on this podcast. And when we decided to do the Grimoire of Familiar Killers last year, I was dreading it. I was like, how am I going to sit through a Friday the 13th movie? The very idea still kind of horrifies me in the back of my head. And much like what Kaylin said at the top of the show, I kind of view these movies as prototypes for later horror. And there's going to be a middle point. I think it's in the 90s, and it's like the Hellraiser movies, which still have a lot of fucked... Like, I watched Hellraiser 1, and when you put up Hellraiser 1 against Friday the 13th one, Hellraiser is actually, like, makes you feel gross. And Friday
Real
the 13th...
gooey. It's a gooey movie.
It's gooey, and it's gross.
It's yeah, oh, God.
Like, feel it. Like, you can feel how sticky it is.
Come to daddy.
Come to daddy. You get to this era of film, and it doesn't really move the needle for me because I've seen so much. And the first Halloween movie had some good moments, but overall I was just like, this is still on and going. I think it's longer than Halloween 2 also. I think it's closer to 2 hours. And what they did with Halloween 2, I actually like this one better. I'm doing exactly what I said not to do, and let's give your opinion. So my point is that's my history with the Halloween franchise. My history with this movie is I just watched it today. There.
First
Cool.
time?
I mean, speaking of the
I
runtime,
almost yelled
it
tracks
isn't-
at you. Yeah.
I like that it's an hour and a half long, so it's a nice quick watch, but it literally just picks up where the last one ends. So there's no act one. You don't have to waste time in an act one to this movie because it's just continuing at the end of the last one. So they're able to go into like a depth with this movie in an hour and a half that would normally take maybe 2 hours because you have to set up characters and whatever. If it's a true sequel, like they kind of did it different, and I really appreciate that because they could, I don't know, show more deaths and make it feel like a longer movie without making you sit through a longer movie.
When you compare it to something like Friday the 13th Part 2, Friday the 13th Part 2, I don't know when the last time you watched this piece of shit is, but it has like 3 minutes of just black credits, like just the names. Yeah. Then it has 10 minutes or maybe before or after, 10 minutes of a recap of the first movie, of like flashbacks of just like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And then it's just the same movie over again. At least this
Yeah,
one.
like that one starts with like the sitting around the campfire, right? And like telling the story about the first
That
movie,
happens
and
later. So they
flashbacks
do a
to all the
10-minute
things.
flashback, which is just showing the last 10 minutes of the first movie. And then they do a around the campfire story where they do that again. And we're like, we already got this. We don't need it twice.
If you subtract all of that, Friday the 13th Part 2 is about an hour and 5 minutes.
Yeah, it's like the length of a Disney movie.
Yeah.
I did appreciate.
I know you guys.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I know you guys did Nightmare on Elm Street too, which is, if I'm speaking to my favorite Halloween or scary movie sequels, that's right up there. Like that movie's fucking incredible.
Yeah, I like that one
Blew
quite a
all
bit.
kinds of doors wide open.
We're probably gonna end up. It's gonna be neck and neck with Chucky 2 and Nightmare on Elm Street.
Your comments on that make me want to see that again. I haven't seen that in years.
It's really good looking, and they do a lot of interesting cinematography. And obviously, Chucky is such a character that he's kind of a joy to watch every time he's on screen because he's having such a good time being evil.
And I forget the actor's name, like who does the voice, but he's awesome. I mean, he's
Brad
still doing
Dourif.
it. Like that's right.
Yeah.
Still doing it as far as I know.
Yeah, he just finished the second season of the television show that they've been doing, which is also quite fun. I was gonna say that I appreciated that it started right at the end of the other movie as well, and they sort of did like an overlap where they did also play the last couple of minutes of the first movie, but they shot new footage for it, and they basically like sort of recut that last little part so that it could work seamlessly.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like a flashback.
It feels like Halloween 1 is the season finale and Halloween 2 the beginning is like the season premiere. Because they did that thing that I love where you at the end of Halloween 1 you just see a mark on the ground where he landed in the credits, and in this one they show the mark on the ground, and then and then Dr. Loomis runs out to it and like touches it. He's like, what
touches it and there's blood in it.
Like,
And it feels
chocolate
just like
syrup
crop
here.
circles, like someone like made that imprint. Like that's not what would happen if someone fell.
You just got someone to lie there for a while, and then
Yeah.
people helped him up. Yeah, I thought you were gonna
making
say
a snow angel. Like careful.
I thought you were gonna say they did something that I love, which is let Donald Pleasence scream a bunch on screen for a while about evil. Like, it's evil here. I shot him 6 times.
Did he say
Shut
seven?
up, or he just runs around
I thought
screaming
he
that he
said
shot him.
seven.
What'd you say, Keelan?
Sorry. Did he say he shot him 6 times or 7? For some reason, I thought I heard him say 7.
He says 6, and he says it so many times.
It's
Like,
six,
I shot him
yeah.
6 times.
It's got a revolver, I believe.
Times.
That's the
bullets,
thing,
no.
because if you watch it and listen, there's 7 shots.
Of
And
course.
that gun doesn't hold 7 shots.
No.
So it's a whole like Clint Eastwood, do you feel lucky punk sort of
Yeah.
thing. But like
The
other
other shot
way.
was coming from next
It doesn't
door
make sense.
during some other a completely different domestic.
Chucky was next door.
Yeah.
Right? They were
Little
filming
did they know this movie takes place on Elm Street and that somebody was
Yeah.
shooting off
Somebody was
guns.
shooting at Freddy.
Oh man, imagine a movie with all of them in it. Freddy, Chucky,
Leprechaun.
Jason, Mikey.
Yeah.
You guys,
Pennywise.
speaking of horror movies being comedies, if you have not watched the entirety of the Leprechaun series, do that.
Well, from what I understand,
Hilarious.
it starts like hard horror and then ends up in the hood or in space.
The first one's serious, but like they stop being serious
Yeah.
immediately.
He goes to space as well, just like all the
Which is
best.
probably my favorite horror space movie, like better than Jason in Space.
Yeah, he turns into a giant leprechaun at one point. He's like,
And he turns into a big CGI spider leprechaun in space.
That sounds
oh,
fantastic.
leprechaun.
They also rebooted Leprechaun about 10 years ago with WWE superstar Hornswoggle, which I believe is the last little person. Well, I could give you a lesson on
last little
wrestlers, and I
person.
won't. But there's been like 2 little people as wrestlers in the last 20 years. El Chorito, who is a little bull man. He was a little bull. He had like a luchador mask that was a bull. And Hornswoggle, who was a leprechaun.
Dink.
Oh yeah, well Dink is from the 90s though. Dink is a character from the 90s, and in the 90s there were a lot of little people still wrestling, like Max.
You
Mini.
said 20 years ago, and I just assumed that the 90s was included in that, but it is not, and I'm old.
Oh,
Thank
Dink
you
is
very
from
much.
Dink
This
is
my
from
TED Talk.
specifically 1995 when Doink, Dink, Pink, and Wink fought Jerry Lawler and Scary Barry and Terry or something at a Survivor Series.
Doink, Dink, Pink, and Stink?
And
Is that what you
Wink.
said?
Yeah, they're also the ghosts from Pac-Man.
Yeah. It also sounds like a weird porno title.
Google it. It's kind of like a
It
weird
is.
porno. If
Yeah.
you're into
It's there's cross footage between those.
I think it's the
movies.
wink at the end that really makes me like, ugh.
Dink.
Dink and Wank.
Dink and Wink.
Right. So normally we go through the plot, but you guys just go, and I'll keep us on the track.
That's what the 7th gunshot is. It's you shooting it into the air so that we can sprint to the finish line of this episode.
Exactly. And for Kaylin and Steven, I'm Jason.
I don't have a ton of notes on the actual movie, just more like interesting stuff I was reading about in the production. But the first thing that I appreciate is that, like, I know for a fact that Donald Pleasence on the first movie was like 2 bottles of wine deep almost the entire time he was filming. And I'm sure that was also the case for this movie. There's some points throughout there, you're like, he's definitely drunk right now, right? It's not just me.
He had to be. Like, he didn't want to do. I feel like in his mind, like, this resorting to slasher flicks was his fall from grace, even though it's what put him on the map. Like, I wouldn't have known who he was.
I think he had like a lot of contempt early in the series, where he's like, I'm above this. And then later in his life, after he'd made like 5 of them, I think he died during the filming of the 5th one or something. He was like, I think this is going to be the greatest movie ever filmed. Like, he was like talking like that in interviews and stuff.
It's a whole Orson Welles thing he's got going on there.
French champagne.
Or Robert Shaw in Jaws. Me and Steven went to see the Shark is Broken play, and Robert Shaw's character in it, played by his son Ian Shaw, the best part of the whole thing. Throughout the movie, he's like, I want to go and I want to write my poems and I want to be in real plays. And I get the impression that, you get the impression from watching it that, he's above Jaws. He's just there for a paycheck. And what you're describing from Donald Pleasence is his name, sorry?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're describing the same thing, but you gotta, some of these washed up 60s and 70s and 50s actors who ended up in slasher movies in the 80s, like, they get a little cult following from it. The Shudder
especially
TV
now,
channel
right?
comes out in the 90s, and Sci-Fi, and all these people just have resurgent careers.
Yeah. They get a table at a convention. It's like,
exactly.
My old work is coming back to pay the electric bill again.
Look at Tara
I don't have
Reid
to
and
worry
Sharknado.
anymore. Oh yeah, Tara Reid and Sharknado.
That really,
my 2 favorite things.
What's her name? Tasha Yar from Star Trek. She quit that show after like 7 episodes, but she's still going to conventions.
She's like,
making a paycheck.
Fuck that Gene Roddenberry bullshit. That's not going anywhere.
Yeah, the irony of that is that like she was like, I wanted to do more character focused stuff, and then like season 2 is when they start doing like individual tales of like Geordi and Worf and everything. She would have got it.
And her character was awesome. Her character was fantastic. She kept talking about rape gangs.
On her apocalypse planet. She basically lived on a Mad Max planet. That's
her character would have gone places for sure.
Yeah, her character was Furiosa, basically, from the new Mad Max movie.
But instead, she got eaten by a tar puddle.
A big goop with a funny voice.
One track, guys, come on.
All right,
Halloween 2, the next.
So we get the nice Donald Pleasence dipping his hand in blood and being like, call the police to like the neighbors or whatever. And the cop shows up and he's like, I shot him 6 times. This guy shot at my son. And then he drives off.
So he like runs through the neighborhood screaming it.
Yeah, and then you get that nice font. This is like the difference between something like Jason 2 and Halloween 2 is that the credits are doing something interesting, right? Like, you're getting all the names, you're reading through it, but there's also this pumpkin that's slowly splitting open and coming towards the screen as a skull is being revealed beneath. And
that is
it's so gross. It's so gross to me for some reason. I don't know what it is. The way that it's opening, and it has this like sort of, it's almost like a sheet that's just being peeled off it or something, but it reminds me of like a body opening up or something. It's quite gross. I don't know why. And I can't really put my finger on it.
I want to. You got it behind you, right?
No, that's not the one.
Oh, okay. But
it
still,
kind of gives you the idea.
I know what you mean. Like that, even that looks, it's off-putting to me because it's not just somebody carved in a jack-o'-lantern. It's like a skull. It's a skull
Inside the pumpkin.
inside the pumpkin. That skull is coming from inside the pumpkin.
Oh my god. I'm not sure what it's supposed to represent. I think maybe it's supposed to be like
Samhain.
Evil lives inside
druids.
of everyone or something. Who knows?
I bet.
Can we start a petition to call this movie November 1st?
I mean, it kind of takes
Still
place-
technically Halloween night. We don't know what time it is.
Yeah.
That's another.
It
thing
There's
that I-
no time.
It ends
off,
on
like,
November.
It just
1st.
picks up.
Yeah.
That's another thing
That's
that I
true.
really appreciate about this movie, that it's the same day. Like they don't, not a lot of like TV does that all the time, but movies, I can't think of anything where a sequel is like moments later like that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They don't
you
do it
can
very
literally
often,
watch these two movies as one movie back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're going to notice that Jamie Lee Curtis ages several years.
Like 3 years. Yeah.
Yeah.
which is,
It's 3
which
years
is
between these
Yeah.
movies.
She's also wearing a pretty bad wig in this movie.
Yeah.
Like you
Yeah,
can
I
kinda
watched
tell
a
that it's
movie
not
last
real.
night that she was
hair.
in between these two movies. Fuck. I'm gonna think about it and I'm gonna let you guys know what movie.
Was
that
it Trading? It
It's
wasn't
probably-
Trading Places, was it?
No, it was a horror movie. It was another horror
Oh,
movie.
Oh, is
She
it
plays
the
a
prom night
hitchhiker.
or whatever? Oh no.
No, that's one of my favorite horror movies from this time period as well.
It's a good one, yeah.
No, it's something else that's far lower key than anything you guys have brought up. I'll look it up and let you know.
I think the one saving grace for the wig in this is that like it was, the 80s when everybody was just murdering their hair with hairspray anyway. So you
Yeah,
can't really,
yeah.
just like, just
Yeah, I
maybe
mean, if
she's
you
a
had
lot of
seen her
hairspray.
hair in this movie I watched the other night, like the wig was a good choice.
The wig also looked like it was supposed to be made to be disheveled because she does spend most of the time in a hospital bed in this movie. That's something I wanted to bring up. I love the hospital trope. The hospital trope is used very sparingly, but the part that I think of the most is the old Silent Hill games would always have a hospital section, but also the Walking Dead famously has that opening scene where what's his face?
Oh, wakes up.
He wakes up in the hospital. He finds he's getting zombied immediately, and the hospital setting compared to like the forest, the campground, or the just the house.
Hospitals are also
Cabin in the woods.
inherently an uncomfortable place, right? They're associated with sickness and death, so it's already unnerving to be in a hospital, no matter what the movie is. If you're in a hospital in a movie, it's either the story is about a doctor or somebody got hurt or something bad is going to happen.
But also his
Someone's
murder
dying.
weapon throughout the movie is this fucking disgusting looking scalpel with a hook on it, like a hooked scalpel.
It almost looks like a dental tool. Yeah.
It was like, or one of the tools that is on the table next to the Joker when he becomes the Joker in Tim Burton Batman 89.
Yeah.
Give me the mirror.
Mirror. It was the fog that I saw Jamie Lee Curtis in, which was
Oh,
also
right.
John Carpenter.
John Carpenter.
He likes Jamie Lee Curtis. She was only hired because her
Also
mom's
did.
famous, by the way.
Yeah.
This
From
movie,
Psycho,
they wanted
right?
some like, yeah.
Yeah, she's the woman who gets murdered in the shower in Psycho, right? Who is recast as Anne Heche, and you famously see her butthole in that film, in the Psycho remake.
I don't know if that's true.
It is,
In the
because when I was watching Hollywood Babylon, in
The actual
old
hole,
days,
Jason.
they used to sing a song that went, Anne Heche's butthole, Anne Heche's butthole, Anne Heche's butthole.
Well, if Disney accumulates that title at some point, they're gonna like airbrush over the butthole, or they'll extend her hair all the way down to cover it.
Yeah. She has like a pixie cut. They'll just draw it down.
Just draw some, paint some hair down there.
Yeah, she's
Longer.
she has a Chelsea that's like, anyway. Yeah, I just wanted to, before we move on, I wanted to compare and contrast a little bit more the credits to Friday the 13th once again. And the whole time I was like, you're right, Steve, this fucking pumpkin is so much better than just black and white lettering and then the logo for the movie exploding.
It's also
That
how they did the
explosion was
first
pretty
movie,
dope, though.
except the pumpkin didn't have a skull in it in the first movie, so they've evolved the credits from the first movie into a pumpkin with a skull.
which is cool.
That is
It
cool.
is a cool.
Are you guys
thing
going to
do.
do Halloween 3 next year, which has nothing to do with Michael Myers?
We're gonna probably do
Maybe.
Well, maybe I was thinking about doing Halloween in the spring and open the Grimoire in the spring and do the third, and then next Halloween do the fourth movies. That's my plan.
Just so we don't have to wait 9 years to get to.
To get through, like do
Jason
two
Goes to
Halloween
Hell.
weeks every year, and then
That's fair.
we can get to Jason X in a solid 3 years.
I mean, I'm not going to tell you guys how to do your jobs, but if you want to have me back for all the Halloween movies, I'm here for it.
Okay,
Nice.
we'll retcon you, and we'll. Can you just do a bunch of B-roll and I'll retcon
Just
you? into the
quotes,
original?
yeah.
Yeah.
Just do some ADR. on the
I
first
thought
minute.
that this movie
I'll just
was
watch
good.
it, and I'll be
Like
recording on my
planet
phone,
Earth.
and
You
I'll
don't
just
have to be
keep
crazy to
commenting
live here,
my
but it
wife.
sure helps.
I say that to my wife all the time, and she
Therapy is just a narcissist machine.
the worst look. Yeah. Okay.
What I noticed, so Laurie was going to the hospital. She kept asking, "Don't let them put me to sleep," like as if she
Freddie.
was in Nightmare on Elm Street. Like,
Yeah.
I didn't understand what that was about. Nightmare on Elm Street wasn't even out yet, so they couldn't be referencing it.
I think she was
But
just not convinced that he was gone, right? She was too scared of
Yeah,
him
that's
coming for her when she was sleeping. But I thought the same thing, where I was like, just hearing the like, ding, ding, ding. Like, oh no. And also they
Whatever you
did
do.
the thing that, and so in the Freddy movies, anytime you see a red light projected in the background or through a doorway or something, it's meant to visually confirm that
The
Freddy
dream
is watching,
Yeah.
or you're in the dream world. Especially in the second one, because there is no dream world in that one, right? It's all just sort of happening through possession. So it's like anytime the red light is there, but they do it in this all the time. You see this red light. I'm like, oh, Freddy's here. He's watching.
Speaking of lighting, like, okay, I know the hospital, it's the night shift, but did you guys notice throughout the movie, the lights kept getting dimmer and dimmer? Like someone just kept turning
Yeah.
lights off.
I think that was a
Throughout the night.
stylistic choice more than anything else.
That was
because
probably Bud because he was trying to get it on.
That's
perhaps he's like, if everything is mood lighting, everybody will be in the mood all the time.
Honestly, Bud I went from fuck this guy, he should meet his end just like that character in Friday the 13th who's like got rapey vibes, to he actually has a girlfriend, he just talks shit. So the talking shit part I don't care for, but I thought he sexually assaulted that nurse, but then it just turned out that he was being fun. I think they wanted us to go from, we need a dickhead character, but we're going to turn it on its head. He's going to have a little bit of sympathy. Then we're going to strangle him in the background and boil his girlfriend. We watched Freddy last week, and I wanted the kids to get boiled in that pool so badly. And this week, I got
help yourself, fucker.
Yeah.
retribution when somebody
That
got
pool scene was
boiled.
So good.
I got nervous during the boiling scene in this movie because I really don't like ooey gooey boiled faced people in movies.
And
Like
he kept
burn
pulling
stuff.
her out, and the skin.
Yeah,
was
and I was like,
getting
it's gonna
burned
get
more
grosser
and
and grosser, but it just got to a point where I was like, okay, it's not too
wasn't
bad.
too
Yeah.
No,
I was
it was no
expecting
Hellraiser.
it to be like a
That's for
melty
sure.
skeleton. Yeah, like the Uncle Rape or whatever his name was.
It
What was
wasn't a
his name?
man regenerating from a pile of blood over the course of
Yeah, a
what
single
feels
drop
like
of
4
blood.
hours, but it's literally an hour and
God,
40
I love
minutes.
Hellraiser.
Ugh. When he turns into that weird dog thing, like, I mean, I know it's supposed to be like his nervous system coming back together, but like when I first saw that, I had been on a night shift, like recently been put on a night shift, so I was like extremely sleep deprived, and I was watching this, and it was affecting me so physically that I started having a panic attack while watching this movie because the visual was so like disturbing to me in that moment. And I was like, I gotta go to bed. I can't watch this right now. It's fucking
I
way too much.
remember one night when I was getting a little bit more like, I'm gonna watch some horror movies. It was around the time when I first watched Saw. I watched Devil. I watched Cabin in the Woods, and I was like, I'm finally gonna do it. I'm gonna check out Hellraiser. And even though that opening scene is just like a guy running around with the cube, I was like, I can't. My mind prison is flaring up. On that note, too, another movie that really helped me with realizing that horror movies aren't just a straight up gore fest from bell to bell is American Horror Story. American Horror Stories are really good. Like, it'll ease you into horror because they can't really go that far because it's only on like Showtime or FX or whatever. I find that to be a really good starting point, especially the first season, which is the Murder House. There's nothing really brutal in it, and it's what's his face. Who's the creator of Glee and
Ryan
Murphy.
something.
He's more like he likes to do weird sex stuff. So it's
the truest horror of them all.
it's Evan Peters in a gimp suit a lot of the time. That's the horror. Like it's,
maybe I should watch this show.
It's great. If you've never seen American Horror
most
Story,
of the seasons are great.
You would love the first season for it.
I've never watched it. Yeah,
their use of horror trope after horror trope is really well done.
And of course, it's an anthology. Like each season is different. Like I like the second season was the mental hospital, which is one of my favorites.
And it's set in like the 50s. Yeah. The third season
and
is
the carnival one.
Yeah, the carnival.
I didn't like the Coven.
Or season 4, the Coven. I liked the first Coven, but what they started doing is they started making like sequel. Okay. Oh. Thank you, Caitlin. They started making sequel series to their own anthology. So anyway. Back to Halloween, November 1st.
I liked. I'm just gonna go down my notes. I liked when the sheriff or the cop or whatever, they're like, oh, there's a bunch of bodies and one of them might be Annie, and like he runs over to check. I liked that they got the original actress who played Annie just to play the corpse, just to lay there for like the 2 seconds it was on the screen. Like, I'm glad she did that. She was also in The Fog, by the way.
I wonder how much money they paid her for that.
Yeah, I wonder.
I think that John Carpenter, though,
so maybe like $50.
Yeah,
$1. Just the credits. You
just got to eat some mac and cheese on that evening.
You got a hot dog and a handshake like an 80s jobber wrestler.
I know that the producer on these movies is kind of a notorious prick, but John Carpenter has always been sort of loyal to his crew and to his like circle of actors and partners and stuff. So I wouldn't see anything strange about the fact that he probably just asked her, especially since he was directing The Fog, do you want to come back and just be a like dead body, please?
Yeah, they must have filmed like this right after The Fog, and it was probably just like, hey, like, you want to just go lie in that stretcher and we'll film it.
Yeah, I think that John Carpenter, like, he didn't have any interest in making this movie because he thought that the first movie ended perfectly and it was done. But they asked him to direct it, and he said no. And he was like, I got to do The Fog. I'm working on The Fog still. I'm still editing The Fog. But he did come back to write it. And this movie was written, like, he wrote a first draft, which is completely different. It doesn't take place right after the movie. It takes place like a couple years later, and she lives in the city. It's almost like what Jason in Manhattan, or Jason Takes Manhattan, ended up being. But the producer didn't like it. And he's like, I don't want it to be that. I want it to be the same as the first movie. Same budget, same exact everything. And so John Carpenter got really drunk. Yeah. And he just got super drunk and rewrote the script. And that's how he came up with the dumb sibling plot. John Carpenter was just like blackout drunk. No, he said that he drank like a lot, not a 6-pack of anything.
6-pack of wine.
Yeah.
6-pack of bottles of wine.
No, he did make it clear that it was too many beers. So that's an interesting thought process, that he just had like.
Yeah, I mean, that the whole sibling thing really drives the rest of the series.
Do you know what's crazy?
Interesting. Like, I didn't. What's crazy?
I was just gonna say, somehow that's never been spoiled for me. That was shocking.
Oh, really?
That was like, what? When I watched this movie.
Especially, you look at like Resurrection and H2O, like the soft reboots at the late 90s, early 2000s, like they really leaned into it. Like,
but now there's only 4. There's
Laurie,
these 2 and Halloween It Kills and Halloween Ends, right? That's
don't even get me started. Now? I don't even.
No spoilers,
so
because those movies are pretty fresh, and I will probably watch them one day. But that's how I understand it.
I watched the first of them. I haven't watched the next 2. I just think it's dumb that they're like that they're just picking and choosing what to erase from the series. Yeah. Like, I don't.
Yeah,
like if you're gonna reboot it all the way. I don't like why. I don't.
They did that and it sucked.
Yeah, it's true.
You guys see Dana Carvey?
We did not. Did you? Because
we talked about it before you joined. Yeah. I saw his name in the credits at the end, and it said Dana Carvey assistant. And at first, I was like,
"There's a reporter."
Oh, cool. He was like a script assistant or whatever.
Yeah, it's around the beginning when the reporter's like, "Get permission from the parents to get a statement from the kids, and if you can't get a hold of parents, just get a statement from the kids anyway." You can't really see him. It's mostly like back/slight, like 3/4 profile or whatever.
Was he doing an impersonation of what's his name? Fuck. I fucked the joke up. No, I was gonna say the guy who runs SNL.
Lauren Michaels.
Lauren Michaels. Yeah.
Was he dressed as a
speaking of
turtle?
the whole he was I'm a turtle. Speaking of the sister twist, the twisted sister twist. I realized this came out before Empire Strikes Back. Oh no, sorry. Empire Strikes Back came out before this, so it had the first like big like family reveal. Like, holy shit, Luke is whatever, Darth Vader's son. But Halloween 2 was probably written before that came out. Like, so John Carpenter wasn't kind of piggybacking on that Empire Strikes Back shit.
He probably just had some drunken revelation where he's just like, I don't fucking know. They're siblings.
One of the daughters got adopted.
But I bet Empire Strikes Back came out and he was probably pissed. He was like, God damn it, I did that first.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is that, blockbuster versus cult horror movie. How big a movie was this when it came out? I imagine Halloween 1 must have been a bigger deal, and Halloween 2 people were just like, sequel.
Probably. I know Halloween, the first one was extremely profitable because it cost almost nothing.
It cost like $100,000 to make or something hilarious.
Something like that. Yeah, like
it grossed $7 million.
Adjust for inflation, that's like $50 million.
Which is not great because the first one made $47 million on a $100,000 budget. So
adjust for inflation,
still not bad.
50 mil.
Yeah, but the first one is like, I think it still holds the record for money spent versus money owned or earned.
Nope, I actually looked that up. It's Paranormal Activity.
Oh, really?
Has Halloween beat? Yeah, is the most.
Because that movie literally cost $50 to make. It cost the camera rental basically, and get a house and some string.
I was surprised that it wasn't like the Blair Witch, because the Blair Witch was like $10,000. I think was the budget on that to film it.
True.
But the marketing was wild for that movie. I remember in 1999, everything just being Blair Witch.
They made people believe that it was real. They
released a false documentary. Yeah. They made a fake documentary that came out before the movie that was like the true story of the Blair Witch, and this was like before the movie came out, and I remember watching it being terrified because I was like, this is real? This lady killed kids for real?
And what's making a movie about this is it's
why are they
it's the same idea as a mockumentary. People still believed it. It's the same idea as a mockumentary. People like Spinal Tap. Spinal Tap is a very famous movie, is a very popular movie. Nobody was like, this is just a horror Spinal Tap. There's no way. I remember them showing
not even Spinal Tap. Keeping it in horror, to keep it in the horror genre, there was Cannibal Holocaust in like 1981.
That's true. That's a good point.
Horror mockumentary.
Because that is a horror mockumentary as well, right? Like it's fully filmed. But
I think people thought that was real. Like the special effects in that movie are goddamn amazing. Like people thought
it's like banned though, so I don't know if the same amount of eyes.
It's pretty gross.
Saw Cannibal Holocaust.
It was a pretty small movie.
Yeah. I don't think we can say Holocaust on Twitch to put that in perspective.
Only if you say the word cannibal in front of it, so you have that like movie title. You have to say the full title. Right, Twitchies, tell us.
Right, you Twitch bitch. Thanks for watching, one person.
Yeah. I think that movie, like some of the people involved were like actually wanted by the FBI at one point because there was suspicion that somebody had actually been murdered on the set of the movie, and it all turned out to be
that's correct.
False. Yeah, it's like crazy.
They did kill animals on screen. Like you won't find no animals were harmed during.
I mean, they did that in the first Friday the 13th as well. They cut the head of a goddamn live snake, and I remember being like, "What is happening?"
Not to mention Milo and Otis.
1 out of 5. Yeah.
Yes.
Milo and Otis, the Disney cartoon.
Yeah, a lot of animals died in that film.
Yeah,
there's this company that
no humans were harmed in the making of this film.
It was like this Japanese company that had no rules, and there were many Milos and there were many Otises.
Yeah, I remember seeing the trailer for that. My mom named her dog Otis, so I sent the trailer to my mom being like, this is what you named the dog after, right? And then she was like, yeah. And I'm like, how many cats do you think drowned during that basket
during that scene in the
it was something like 20.
Name your animal after this shit.
I do. Okay, so at the beginning of this movie, I want to talk for a second about how I think that up against... I feel like Friday the 13th is a direct ripoff of Halloween. That I will say...
Mm-hmm. It definitely is.
Because I know, Steve, you don't like it when I say the word ripoff, but in the horror spectrum...
I just don't like when you compare everything to
Final
Fantasy.
I know. I won't compare this to Final Fantasy. I will compare this to Resident Evil.
I bet you can find a way to do it, though.
I could probably do it. I can do... Resident Evil definitely borrowed heavily from 80s slashers. Every bioweapon... I didn't realize this till much later in my life, but... You're going through killing zombies in survival horror games, but in the Resident Evil series specifically, there's always a bioweapon. And if you like wait around too long in a room, a giant hulking monster will like blast through a wall and it'll be unkillable. And when they get killed, they bounce back up the way that Michael Myers does specifically. And
Mike
Jason,
Myers.
I guess, too. I know you hate it also when I say Mike
Yeah,
Myers.
baby!
Yeah, baby!
Yeah, I remember that part, and it was scary. It was the scariest part of the game.
Yeah.
You had to,
Oh, man. What about a Halloween remake or whatever where they use a Mike Myers mask?
Like an Austin
Like
Powers
an Austin
mask?
Powers.
Hey, yeah, an Austin Powers mask.
Oh, like
dude.
a-
Like in, what was that movie, Baby Driver?
Yeah. Yeah, they all have Michael
Did they do
Myers
the
masks.
same treatment, like make it white and hollow at the eyes a
Yeah,
little
yeah,
and
exactly.
tease
Do
the
the same
hair?
thing, but
Yeah.
it's Mike Myers
It's
instead of
just
Shatner.
Yeah, just gonna have weird teeth and
Yeah.
fake rubber glasses.
So to go back
Or
to
Wayne's
my-
World.
to go back to what I was originally saying, I think that the first person stuff with Michael Myers is a lot better because you have to wait to see Jason in at least the first two movies. You don't see him. Well, you don't see him in the first movie, obviously. In the second movie, you don't see him for a while. You see his like feet. You see his point of view. In this, you get a thing where Michael Myers, you're seeing very vivid from his point of view, and then it's almost like the camera separates from him, and then you just see him doing shit and standing and being a silhouette or standing in the shadows. And I think that is that's spookier to me.
Yeah.
I think so. I guess
Well, it's because there's an anticipation, and you know that you're looking through the eyes of the killer, right? And like they're emulating the shot from the first movie, right? They do that.
Yeah.
In the first movie, they have this really long one shot that goes through the entire house, and then he kills the woman. So you have this anticipation in this moment where he's going to this house that the same thing is going to happen, but he doesn't. He just takes the knife and leaves. Right?
I think just to sort of get to the point on this is my view of Friday the 13th versus Halloween is like almost classy and like well-intentioned and a lot more well thought out, and Friday the 13th is like the knockoff, like an Asylum Films version of Halloween. And I know it goes off in its own direction, but I always saw Halloween as more like he's going after one person and there's collateral damage, where Jason is just like disgustingly murdering people, you know.
Yeah,
Well,
I mean this. Sorry, go ahead.
The Friday the 13th movies I find are more of a cash grab. They're like, well, killing teenagers and showing tits on screen is going to make us money, and they were right. Like that paid off.
Yeah.
It's not
It's
what
a- yeah,
Halloween
it's
was
a-
doing.
It's a machine designed to make money, but also the machine is fueled on the creativity of the kills and not necessarily the philosophy behind what's
And
going
titties.
on
But
screen. And
ironically,
boobs.
this had some of the best kills that I've seen in any movie. The bloodletting, blood. So the on-screen kills in this movie all kind of suck. The special effects like aren't there. The hammer to the head was kind of like it's not very well done. But the off-screen kill, the bloodletting shit, horrified me the most. I thought that was the most creative way to discover somebody killed that I've seen in any of these 8 movies we've done over the last 2 Halloweens. And
then
I
the
did
last
like
Starfighter
that,
slips and hits
go
his head.
yeah, and then he in fucking Johnny or Donnie or the fuck
Jimmy.
his name, Jimmy.
He's a little
Written on his shirt.
And he gets massively concussed.
Yeah, and then he never comes back.
And he passes out.
You
in
see him in the
car.
car, and he's just like, what happened to Jimmy? Is Jimmy okay? Did somebody check on Jimmy?
He's got CTE, and now he fucking.
I'm sure he shows up in one of the remake or like the newer ones as he's got brain damage or some shit now and works at the local pub or something. I think that's like one of the big things about these new movies is that, you know, they start or they take place the same amount of time that passed since this movie and now, and then like every character that ever existed in those movies that didn't get murdered is
Geriatric.
still in the town. They're all in the town still, and they're like they have roles and everything.
Like you wouldn't get the fuck out.
Yeah, exactly.
You have a town.
This keeps happening every goddamn Halloween.
Actually, in
the
the one that was just titled Halloween, there's a character in the movie who's like, who the fuck cares? Like a couple of people got murdered like 40 fucking years ago. Like, why is everyone so obsessed with this?
He's coming back.
And it's like true. Yeah, that's true.
They
We have to hang out
like
near the
9
Myers
movies
home
in
and
the
wait for him.
Yeah.
I like how the people in the town are just rioting at this Myers home. They already, in the first movie, it's sort of like, that's the Myers home. Don't go near it. A grisly murder happened there. And in this one, they're like, it was the Myers home. Let's protest at it.
Well, the news gets out if you listen to I had the subtitles on. So like all the news broadcasts that are happening through the first like 10-15 minutes of the movie are all like, it turns out it was Mike Myers, the guy who killed his sister. Like it was that house over there. Like they're just constantly broadcasting it. So if you're paying attention to the background noise, like they're letting the whole town know, like, hey, and if you want to fuck someone up, go to that house.
Yeah, and honestly, just look at like real world media today and the way that people respond to just the slightest bit of misinformation and how much they'll just go protest something instantly. It's not a long shot for me to think that if you heard it and knew where the house was, they would run down and start hucking rocks through the windows. He's in there. No, it's just the dog that he ate from the first movie.
No animal deaths in this movie.
I do want to talk a little bit about what you were saying, Jason, about how this franchise in particular feels a little bit more thought out and has a bit more philosophy behind it.
Classy is the wrong word, but I think you know what I mean. Where it's
almost like Taylor versus Walmart brand.
Yeah, like the original movie, like Transformers, versus the Asylum movie.
Yeah, no, I know exactly what you're saying, but I think it's just like. So why is that? And like, why is it that you feel that way? Right. Like, I mean, there are still breasts in this movie and there's still a lot of gore happening. It just feels like it takes its time a little bit more. And I know this movie isn't as long as the first one, but it does take moments to let that anticipation grow without hucking tits in your face or wiggling a butt or having somebody smoking tons of weed. You do get a little bit of weed smoking. I know, but that's not what the point of the scene is. The scene is designed in order to build the tension, right? It's designed that's an aspect of it, but they designed the scene and the camera work and everything in order to like hold your hand to get to that moment that you are feeling uneasy. Whereas when Jason's around, you're just like, how is he going to get him this time? You're not like scared to see Jason. You don't have that built fear, and like all the jump scares or the cat jumping out of the trash can, something that's in a million movies, but it still kind of made me jump a little bit. And that character, the security guard, you think he's going to die immediately, and you're holding on him for like a good 3-4 minutes after that,
which I think,
after the jump scare.
I think that whole sequence is a detriment and kind of my problem on an inverse of what I'm talking about, where the first Halloween has a lot of this and this has a little bit, but it's a shorter movie, so you get to the Home Alone of it as soon as you get to the hospital. Craig, the Home Alone of it is a term I use for when the movie gets to the point, like when the movie like in Home Alone when he realizes the guys are coming to fucking attack his home and he starts setting up the traps. That's when the movie starts for me. And a lot of movies have this where there's just a bunch of like stuff that happens and then you get to the fucking Home Alone of it. And this one In Friday the 13th Part 2, it's like the last half hour of just Jason killing people. In this one, it's as soon as they introduce the hospital, and that becomes sort of the grounds for which the murders are going to be encapsulated in. This does have the unfortunate side effect of there's a lot of people just like moving around hearing noises. And this scene with the security guard is the worst offender because it just holds on him for so long. And I get in 1981... if you're in a theater and you've never seen the last horror movie you saw was Halloween several years ago, they've amped up everything already in this movie. So you're going to be scared. The music's crazy, that John Carpenter-esque. He might have even done the soundtrack for this movie, right?
Yeah, he's done the soundtrack for most of them.
He did the original theme song, so someone might have like remixed it, like re-recorded it for this one. But it is.
I was looking at it today, and I believe he did do the
He's
music.
credited,
Yeah.
but I think someone else might be credited as well for music.
His horror music is so iconic, and that's one of my favorite things about this movie, where it's less an ambient sound like in Freddy. It's music.
The theme song.
He composed it, and he and Alan Howarth collaborated together on the score for this movie.
There we go.
I'm bored in the future. I'm bored 40 years later, but in 1981, I imagine it was terrifying to watch this guy get spooked at every corner and then finally just get fucking. Does he get strangled? What's his?
He gets a hammer in the head.
Yeah, he's the one that gets hammered in the head, right? And then later he's seen hanging, which I think is more shocking than the hammer to the head.
Get hammered every weekend.
What?
He said he gets hammered every weekend.
Oh yeah, you get a hammer to the head most days.
Yes. So, but yeah, I don't disagree with what you're saying. I think that I don't know if I would say that I was bored while watching this movie, but I know what the point you're trying to make is.
And I will say I wasn't this compared to I was bored during the first Halloween. Much the same way that if it was 1978, if it was 1978, it was like the first time they made one of these horror movies in this way. I would be terrified if I was a teenager in the 70s. But like I said,
so I mean the first one I watched it was probably the like mid 90s, so I would have been like 15, 16 and borrowed my friend's like VHS, and I was watching it in my parents' basement at like midnight with all the lights off, like by myself.
Nice.
Like that was terrifying. Yeah, if I'm watching it now, like I got a kid running around, and I mean I'm not watching Halloween with my 2-year-old running around the house, but I get it. Like things move at a faster pace these days. I don't have just like all the time in the world to sit by myself in the basement. So I set that atmosphere for myself that kind of like elevated it for me.
Something like Midsummer or Hereditary that's not really about the gore and the shock. It's more about the psychological mind fuck. That's what scares me. That's what scares me now. And none of these 80s slashers have any of that. Maybe the later ones do, but I think they become more about the spectacle of the kills. And it just, much like the Saw series, which we've all talked about. We talked about it on the show. Me and Craig have talked about it in real life. The first Saw movie is a fantastic movie that sits in the annals of time along with these familiar killers. But then each movie tries to outdo the last one. And I think
I'm gonna disagree about the first one. I think it does a really great job about being like psychologically suspenseful, like going along with John Carpenter's score, like just that piano, that dumb, like it's almost like Jaws.
Okay.
Like it's that iconic to me that just like, you know that he's coming, and it's just he's coming so slowly, but you know he's going to get there anyway. Like that's the kind of the psychological suspense that I love about the first one.
Yeah, I also watched the first Halloween like in the daytime. You know, it was after work. I was wiped. I mean,
it definitely. I 100% agree that it was way more terrifying.
But I watched
than
Midsummer in the daytime, and I was wiped out. And there were times when I couldn't look directly at the screen because of
that.
Yeah, you can't really compare the two together though. They're not the same type of horror, and you're not gonna get the same experience. I agree with you completely that when I watch something like Midsummer and Hereditary, I have a much more visceral and physically disturbed feeling than I do when I watch Halloween. But
imagine being
15
at midnight watching Hereditary. You might mess yourself up. You know what I mean? Like you might fuck something up
in the pants
in your head. You might mess your pants. You might ejaculate if you do that too.
Yeah, Hereditary.
Not where I was going, but yeah.
I thought you meant pee.
Oh shit! You meant shit your pants.
I think he was talking about pooping.
Yeah.
Poo-poo.
Pooping and peeing.
Hereditary, it's a different type of disturbing, right? Like you watch and hear an actor giving an extremely good performance of somebody who's just lost their daughter, and you feel this, like you feel the emotion, and it's so impactful that it reflects upon you and absorbs into you to the point that you are just like, I cannot listen to this woman shrieking anymore. It's actually disturbing me, to the point that you forget that you're watching a movie, and that's different, right? That's a different type of emotion. Whereas something like this, it's creepy in the sense that like after the fact, if you're in your basement, it's dark and you got to go upstairs and you don't have the lights on.
Yeah,
you're
you
gonna be
run
like,
to that
Mike Myers could be in here, yeah, baby.
The design of Michael Myers is a lot.
The love guru's gonna get me.
Screw me, baby. The design of Michael Myers' mask being kind of worn. I know that the story goes that they lost the mask, right? So they kind of redesigned it.
Not for this one. For this one, the story is it's still the original, but the way they stored it, I can't remember if it was the art director or something, but one of the people involved kept it in like a shoebox or something under their bed, and they were a heavy smoker. And then also the actor who played Michael the first time kind of just like kept it in his pocket or whatever, and like didn't really like keep maintenance for it.
Yeah,
Interesting.
It looked aged, even though it was a moments later. But he went into he ran off into the night, so we don't know what actually happens to Michael Myers.
Yeah, he also got shot 6 times.
Shot 6 times. I really love the scene.
He definitely didn't get hit by a cop car.
No.
Like, into a gas tanker or something.
That was the weird part of the movie where I'm like, hold on a
that
second.
poor fucking. And then his friends
somebody else
come up, they're
dressed
like,
up
have you seen
exactly
Billy? Like he was walking home drunk with a mask on. Like,
Okay.
Did you guys know that was Laurie's prom date, or the person that she wanted to go to prom with?
Oh, really?
Really?
Get burned alive.
Yeah,
That's
Ben Tramer or whatever.
yeah. Fuck. Good eye.
Here's the thing, though. It looks like a literal child. Why is he dressed as Michael Myers if it's the same?
He saw Halloween 1.
Because it's a Halloween costume. He just went to a Halloween store and bought the shape.
That's like, is there a thing
costume.
in the Scream movies, in like Scream 2? Does Scream 2 take place moments later and there's somebody in the Scream movie who has the Scream costume on? Because that's what I kept thinking
moments
of.
The
later,
Scream
though.
movies get meta. They sell the costume, yeah.
Because
So
of
the Scream
murderers,
movies
yeah.
start meta.
Yeah, true.
The whole thing of the killers are like, before you know he's the killer, he fucking's like, I love horror movies, and if I was in a horror movie, this is what I would do.
Jamie,
think
no,
that
look behind you.
Yeah, I think that the coincidence that this kid is wearing the exact same thing that Michael Myers is wearing is just something you got to overlook. Like you can't spend too much time thinking about it.
I think that's played for comedy, and I think that that's one of those subtle comedy moments in this,
I found it hilarious.
in this film.
It's very funny.
It's
that
so
he's burning
shocking.
alive, and they're like, "Is it him?" And he's like, "I don't
They
fucking know. Look,
draw
he's
guns
totally
on
on
him.
fire."
They draw guns on him. A cop runs into him. It hits a van. It all explodes.
Everything blows up.
It all explodes. I do like that they don't assume it was him and doesn't go about their lives,
Yeah.
and then like that kind of resets things. They're like, I don't know if it's him. We should assume it's not. Let's put everything.
We should stop killing
alert.
just anybody that's wearing a mask that apparently is just sold wide. Like
Or
he's
drive-
wearing
or
a-
walking
he's
on the
wearing
street.
Michael Myers mask and jumpsuit. So apparently that was a known costume in this universe.
No, he saw Michael Myers the day before walking around the neighborhood.
That's
and he
true.
Said, "That's a sick costume. I'm going to make that.
I'm gonna make that right now."
Yeah.
That's true because Michael Myers
good
does
theory.
skulk. Halloween 1 should be called October 30th, and Halloween 2 should be called November 1st.
Well, at least the third one's called The Season of the Witch.
Yeah, at least the third one is.
Because
like,
John
what's the name?
Carpenter actually wanted the movies to be an anthology series to begin with.
Yes,
He wanted to make a Halloween 2, but he didn't want Michael Myers to be the focus. Like he wanted, the Michael Myers story to be
Some
done.
other spooky
To
event.
make more
happening, yeah.
Halloween movies, but like the Season of the Witch kind of thing.
Halloween 3 reminded me of when everyone was up in uproar with Transformers, where they were like, "Monkey bad, truck good."
It
You
is
have to excuse me. I stopped watching Transformers. 20
Yeah,
minutes
I
because it was
don't
a
know what
giant
that
piece
is.
of shit.
Are you talking about the cartoon show, like the?
No, the
yeah.
cartoon was
So
great.
they had the original Generation 1.
Oh,
Like
you're
trucks
talking
and
about
cars.
Beast Wars, or
Then they made
Beasties?
Beast Wars, and everyone
Yeah.
was in uproars like, no
yeah.
monkey, truck.
I didn't really watch because I'm a little bit younger than you guys. I didn't watch the trucks and cars. I watched the animal one, and that's the one that I prefer because I like the animals and dinosaurs
I was
more than I like
age-appropriate
cars.
for
I
the
thought it wasn't bad.
cartoon, but we just didn't have it where I was. But Craig, Craig's a little bit. I don't want to out you.
42. You can say it. I'm 42.
You're a little
years
bit
old.
older than even me, who is the oldest. So like He-Man, but you might have even been on a little bit the other side where you were a little bit too old really to watch Transformers.
Beasties.
I was watching as a kid. I was watching He-Man, Thundercats, Transformers.
Okay, so
Ninja
you were
Turtles.
completely age appropriate for those. So
Yeah.
But by the time Beast Wars came out, Beast Wars and Reboot, you were like, I'm trying to get sexed on. I'm not trying to watch.
Yeah, I
these
was
kid
out.
shows."
I mean, I didn't have a problem with Beast Wars, but it wasn't my jam.
Also,
It was-
it's called
yeah.
Beasties here in
We
Canada.
call
y'all.
Beasties in Canada.
That's only on YTV.
On YTV with PJ.
Because that's
Freshfield.
a Canadian television channel.
I know PJ
PJ
Phil.
Farm, PJ Katie Farm, PJ
I know.
Katie Farm.
I was trying to.
I also
Trying
know
to
Phil
hand that over to
McGuire
you.
now. PJ Phil or PJ.
Oh, he has the last
Paul-
name?
Paul McGuire. Phil Guerrero. Paul McGuire. I really hope that they. So I work
Wanna
for a
see
company, a wrestling company called Superkicked, and they're doing this whole storyline right now where YTV people keep showing up because we're in Toronto and these guys are just around.
That's funny.
I don't want to say they're
That's
like
awesome.
not. They're not like washed up. They do stuff. You know, like they make.
No,
they-
Paul was like a weatherman for like years.
Yeah, he's a. Yeah,
I bet Rick the
producer.
Temp is real jealous.
I said, why don't you get Darren? Oh fuck, what's his name? Darren from. Remember Darren and Mo?
Aaron and Mo or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
What
get-
about that purple thing? What was that purple TV called?
Snit?
Nits or Zits?
I walked
Snit?
right up to
Snit.
PJ Phil and I was like, "Do you got Snit with you?" And he
What
looked
about
at me like,
Elvase?
"Come on." And I was like, and I said, "Man, I loved Elvase." And he was like, "I barely remember that." And I'm like, "I remember."
He was
it.
probably high
You
the whole time.
defined my childhood, my man. And
Yeah.
this guy is short as fuck because when he like
Yeah.
he's probably 4'10", and I'm looking down at him, and I'm like, when he was on TV when I was a kid, I thought he was the tallest man in the world. Because anybody on TV has to be 7 feet tall.
They got to be giant.
Speaking of
No,
people
in
that
fact,
are
it's
7
easier
feet
to film
tall,
people who are shorter.
Michael Myers. Boom.
Well, I have a PJ Phil story. Remember, he came to or I don't know if you were working there yet. He came to the escape games once, and he reeked of a certain herb. Let's just say that much. And we usually go around the circle, and everybody introduces themselves and like a special ability that they have that will be useful inside of the room. And when it came to him, he stood up and like walked into the middle of the circle and said, "I am Phil." I can't remember what his power was, but it was funny and very dramatic.
Oh, that story was almost awesome.
Like Otto's jacket.
It really fell apart at the end there, man.
I have a question.
We're not known for finishing stories on this show. Go ahead, Kalen.
How do you eat a whole razor blade?
He didn't eat the whole
Is this
razor
a riddle?
blade. He just got it stuck in his mouth.
Yeah.
But like,
Is this
It's
a riddle?
huge.
Yeah,
Like,
it's also like they're just playing off of the urban myth, right? Like they're
Yeah,
like the
yeah.
razor blade and the candy. I don't know why they necessarily had to have that in there. If anybody
Well,
else has a
speaking of which,
reason,
you guys are all putting drugs in your candy that you're handing out this year, right? Because that's what people do.
Yeah.
why would I
Actually,
waste
what I
my
do-
drugs like that?
Exactly.
What I usually
Exactly.
do is I buy a whole bunch of China White heroin, the most expensive heroin I can get my hands on, and then I hand it out to 4-year-olds. Just
And
for
let them
free.
have
free.
a good time. Yeah.
And then I
No, I when I saw the razor blade in the mouth, I got a chuckle out of it because that's one of those things that
There's a
if you
like,
well, no, if you look it up, there's literally never been a recorded case of that ever happening, but it's still a thing that people talk about as though it happens every Halloween.
I
Remember
remember
to check your
early
kids'
internet.
candy for syringes.
early internet, that sort of hysteria sort of permeated very
Yeah.
early on in the internet. People shared pictures of, obviously somebody just jammed a fucking razor blade into an apple.
Yeah.
But
And
I-
it's like the fact that you eat 10 spiders a year or whatever in your sleep. It's like, no,
Yeah,
I don't think that's true.
I eat 10 spiders a year,
Why not?
but I do it on purpose because I want
Yeah.
spiders
Yeah, do it
powers.
awake.
And you know, Spider-Man classically turned into Spider-Man by being addicted to eating spiders.
By-
He had a penchant
going for that.
spider eating. He had a tarantula,
He
and that's how he got his
turned into
spider
Tarantula
powers.
Man.
Yeah, he turned into
Yeah.
Tarantula Man.
Tarantulanus.
Tarantulanus.
Did you guys notice that Laurie escaped from the hospital? She got out. And
She
she was
did.
capable, she was stabbed or whatever, but she was capable of moving. And then she just decided to like hang out in a car in the parking lot rather than leaving.
Yeah, I was like, is she exhausted? Did they drug her? Because they did drug her with something, and I was like, is she just fighting off the effects of this chemical,
That's
whatever
true.
it
That's a
is?
good point.
But it seemed like it came in waves, where she would maybe her adrenaline once it kind of left her,
What's
the drug would take over, and she would collapse.
What's it called? Plot armor.
Yeah.
Yep.
When she
He
needed
had a
to run
serious
away,
case
her
of plot
plot
armor. Yeah.
kicked in, and she's like, "I'm
Yeah.
fine." It kind of reminded. I know. Friday the 13th.
Plot adrenaline.
Yeah, Friday the 13th Part 2 obviously happens many years after this, but they did the same thing where they set up a car existing with a flat tire, right? And then when the nurse gets...
No, it's like it has a shitty engine or whatever.
Well, yeah, in Friday the 13th, but in this movie they set up, there's a car, but it's got a flat tire. Laurie goes to that car and gets in. She can't even she can't even turn the car
All the tires
on.
were flat.
So it's
She looked around and noticed that all the tires had been flattened.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Unless
like
I'm
the
thinking
director,
of the fog. Maybe that was the fog.
The director
No,
of
in
later
like
horror movies
some
were
sort of liquid tube had been cut, so there was liquid. I don't know anything about cars, so I'm like, I guess. I believe it. Whatever that liquid is, it's
the gas tube.
Yeah.
I thought that was played to be that way, but it also was dumb. You're right. Why didn't, if she had the energy to just get away? She knows that Michael Myers is inside there wreaking havoc. Maybe she wanted, I don't know. I don't have any reasonable explanation why she didn't just fucking get out of there.
My thing is that I feel like maybe she didn't know she was. Because if I got dropped off at a random hospital in, let's say, like Brampton or something, I wouldn't know how to get home.
Well, she was in her town. She knew where. Oh, she would have known she was still in her town, because another note I had is on her way into the hospital, everyone was like, "Holy shit, that's Laurie Strode! Oh my god, have you seen this? Laurie Strode coming into the hospital."
That's true. Yeah,
everyone knew.
I guess it's supposed to be a small town. Yeah.
Yeah, so
you would know where the hospital is.
But no, I think you're probably more on the money about her having anesthetic or whatever in her and having needing to collapse in a car.
Yeah, and I think that's the reason why they threw that line in there at the beginning of "Don't put me to sleep, don't put me to sleep," is that they wanted a little buffer for us to have noticed that she was getting the drugs, so that would be the reason. And then she's purposefully trying to keep herself awake, right? Throughout the whole movie, every time they go in there, she's not asleep. They're like, she should be asleep.
I guess if you think about
she's
it,
full of drugs.
This whole movie takes place basically in the duration of the movie. Maybe 3 hours truncated.
Yeah,
down
that's
to
the thing
an hour
too.
and a half.
It's
so that's a really good point. You don't think
time.
about the passage of time when you're watching TV and movies, because it's always different. What I will say is me and Craig did have a podcast, a hit podcast, watched by exactly one more person than this podcast. And we covered the television program Blossom. And Blossom was a sitcom from the 80s. And if you know anything or from the 90s. And if you know anything about sitcoms from the 90s, their perception of time is all the fuck over the place. So we have a lot of experience with these passage of time things. That's how I was so keen to know that this was about 4 hours pushed down to an hour and a half.
Right.
But in that era of watching those shows, they would do a lot of stuff where we had no idea how much time had elapsed all the time.
Yep.
Yeah.
But going back to the Friday the 13th, if you look up the timeline of those movies, like the entire, like the first 9 or whatever, I mean, all those movies came out within 12 years of each other, but they take place over 40 years.
Yeah.
There's no real way to tell what years.
And then one goes so far into the future that it's like
Jason X is. I mean, we kind of have to ignore.
What year is that movie supposed to be?
I don't know,
20. It's 200 years from now. It's
2200.
2200.
Yeah. I want to watch that one so badly because it's the first Jason that I watched really, because it came out when I was at an age where I was like, okay, I can do these now. And
it's not Walmart
instead of going back to the first one, I'm like, Jason X, let's go. And I'm like, this is
great. They have
ridiculous.
A holodeck stolen straight from Star Trek. I'm bringing it back to Star Trek.
Cyborg.
They have the holodeck, and they just cut back to it, and he's beating the girls inside a sleeping bag.
Yeah, my favorite kill. Yeah. He also, it's Freddy versus Jason, but he closes somebody backwards in a cot.
There's some good kills in Jason X. There's one where he kicks a guy off of a railing and he lands on a giant mining drill and just slowly rotates the drill on his body.
I swear that's in Jason X.
That's what I just said. Jason
That's
X.
what we're talking about.
Yeah. And it's the cyborg woman that, I remember. So
I just got it for $5 at Walmart. Check out your local
Walmart. You just got
it? Last week, yeah.
They still have those bins at Walmart?
Yes.
And they have movies that old in them?
Yes.
Wow. That's awesome.
It was at the bottom.
I got Child's Play 2, Jason X, all 4 Screams, but they were I already told you guys what happened with that.
Yeah,
the screen ratios are all different, which is that would drive me nuts.
Yeah, VHS was the worst.
Yeah. All right, tracks, people.
So I'm looking. I thought you guys were gonna say more because like we're all people that like to talk. So, but when it's quiet for a second, I go, oh fuck, inside my head. So, oh shit, somebody just gave us gifts.
Lurking. Kicking
on
it.
TikTok.
Lurkers,
We just got
creeps.
gifts on TikTok. That's worth like 20 cents. My friends, we've done it. We've ascended.
That's $5. That's a nickel each.
Let's make a
Wait,
collect
yeah,
all.
4, yeah.
We've ascended.
My math checks out.
Um,
Do you guys notice when Michael Myers walked right through? He just walked through the window.
Yeah.
yes, and
I
That
liked
was
it.
also hilarious.
it was
That's
like
probably my
weird,
favorite
like it was like
comedy
a
of the movie.
weird special effect that didn't look right. Like
It was
a real window.
just breakable everything.
Like it was sugar glass. I'd imagine.
No, what I thought had happened there is he was behind the screen. He was behind the glass, and then they had him walk through already broken glass, and that's why it did that weird little cut.
Oh no, I think that was just
Yeah,
like
that's
the jitter of him moving. Like I think it was just like it broke weirdly. Yes, like it was almost too much of a this is a fake. Like when Jason busts through walls like later in the movies when he's like a tank man and everything just shatters around him. This was like the guy kind of like stuttered a bit, like it didn't break right away.
Yeah.
He kind of like stumbled through it a little bit. And the glass fell in big plates, which usually it just shatters away into like a million pieces or whatever. The glass fell in these big, goofy.
But I mean, this
plates.
happened before Jason was doing that. So these,
No, I know.
they were
It's
laying
just-
the groundwork for
Exactly.
it. They're the real trailblazers. Of
And then those
serial
special effects
killers
guys
walking
went on
through.
to make way better breakaway walls. They're like,
Yeah.
that didn't look
Yeah, exactly.
great. Yeah, maybe we need some air cannons to blast little chunks at the screen as well.
There was
It
another.
was so funny because
There was another funny.
you know why
moment
it's funny. I don't need to say.
that was played kind of for comedy, and it's the security guard just being an idiot in his room, and Michael Myers clearly walks across the fucking parking lot on screen.
The monitor. Yeah.
I love
Guys
that
watching-
trope in anything, but in this one, it was like, how incompetent is this fucking security guard that he missed the 7-foot tall man that they're looking for?
It's like all you got to do is have it in your peripheral. He's like fully turned away from the screen he's supposed to be
He
looking
didn't
at.
even have like a smartphone and internet to like.
No,
distract
he
him.
had an old movie playing on a black and white TV, a little 12-inch, while reading the newspaper.
It's a night shift. What are you gonna do?
Your job?
Yeah, if he was a good security guard, he'd be working during the daytime.
I don't normally
That's true.
read comments from our social media on the show, but somebody here, Devin, the Sim 3, just said, I love Halloween. Why aren't you guys on television? I would watch this show. And to them, to this person, I say, follow us on TikTok.
Tell your friends.
Head over to Twitch, follow us there, and you can see us every Wednesday night at 9:15 p.m. Eastern. And
Yeah,
you
there's
can watch us on
a
TV.
Yeah, it's called the internet.
It's called the internet.
This is the year 2022, where
Television is obsolete.
dying a slow death.
The slowest death ever because they're holding on. So much so that like streaming services have just become television. The old
They have ads
television.
now. Discovery Plus, Netflix. There's you can just get them. With
We've had ads playing through our whole Twitch stream.
Yep.
I've been watching them.
There's an ad
Really,
playing
I have
right
not
now.
been watching. How do those ads work? Does it interrupt, or is it just like a little bottom like banner thing?
So
I think it might pause us
we
for
go
a bit.
no,
and
we go
then-
picture in picture, so you can
Oh,
still
okay.
see us
Oh,
on
okay.
screen below the ad. Well, my wife
Interesting.
is at
On
home,
Twitch.
So
Hi, Madison.
Kaylin says hi.
Hi.
I mean, we've kind of
So glad
walked
that
through
you
most
did.
of the glass doors of this movie in terms of plot, but I think one of my favorite things that they keep making very apparent is that Dr. Loomis has a gun with 6 bullets, but he's really bad at
Yeah.
counting how many bullets he has. I also really liked that, he kept pulling it out and checking and loading it and stuff, and every time he did it, there was somebody giving him like a sideways glance, being like, "This guy is unhinged."
I love when he just pulls the gun.
we be
out.
looking at
Like,
this
he's
guy?
just brandishing a weapon.
Yeah, running
And
around.
He's just,
Aiming it at
he's just
everyone.
a psychologist or a psychiatrist.
Yeah.
Also,
Like a
breaking news.
psycho.
Breaking news. This
But
just
he's
in,
been driven crazy by watching
Yeah.
or by
Breaking
taking
news,
care of Mike
this
Myers
just
for
in.
15 years.
George Clooney has still got it. Madison just came home from the talkies, and George Clooney still got it.
Did you watch The Men Who Stare at Goats? I don't know what George
what movie
Clooney's in
was?
now.
Did you see?
Ticket to Paradise.
She saw a marriage movie.
Old
Ticket-
people marriage movie.
Ticket to
Tickets to
Paradise.
Paradise.
Catherine Zeta-Jones.
What?
Don't mind me.
Sorry.
Dr. Loomis,
Okay.
it was kind of funny when the cop kind of peer pressured Dr. Loomis into smoking a cigarette. He like forced it on him.
Right, yeah. I don't smoke. I just carry this lighter with me at all times. It's
And
very
this gun!
bright yellow lighter. They did have him brandish the lighter just as much as he brandishes the gun.
It's got a lighter ass gun.
They just walk around with both.
Just
Foreshadowing.
lighting it and shooting in the air.
Lighting cigarettes and
It heightens my sense of security.
people in the eyes. I love I love his moments in this movie because they find Sam Hain written in blood on the wall, and he's very knowledgeable of what the meaning of Sam Hain is, and it's basically just like that's the Lord of the Dead, essentially.
That kind of felt like the jumping off point for like creating the anthology, or like to start.
That would
Yeah.
Halloween 6 really leans into that one.
Yeah.
that would have been a cool way to do that. And then later in the movie, clearly he like what you were saying earlier is Donald what's his name? Sorry.
Pleasence.
Donald
Pleasence,
Pleasence clearly wanted to have a monologue where he just said a bunch of fucking Shakespearean shit, but they were like, we don't have Shakespeare, we have druids. And he really leans into that scene.
He's like, Shakespeare was a druid, you fool! And he's like holding a bottle of red wine.
Him and the agent are like driving with the cop, and he starts talking about the druids. And that whole moment, I was captivated. It was probably the most captivated I was in the whole movie because it is a real acting moment where he's like, you know, people fear the darkness, and they fear the darkness that is inside them. And I was like, wow, you know what? I'm not really afraid of the actual dark, but I am afraid of the darkness within. So
Yeah, wait till you get to Halloween 6. He really has some speeches in that one about the darkness and the pagans and everything.
pagan rituals and the darkness.
And Paul Rudd's in it. It's the first. It's not
yeah.
the first movie that was released, but he made it before Clueless. So he made Halloween 6. Then he made Clueless, but Clueless came out
I
first.
thought Paul Rudd's
Halloween.
first thing that he ever did was that commercial for Super Nintendo.
We're talking about movies. but
Movies,
probably
not commercials.
Commercials for video games.
90 minutes,
movies.
not 90
Yeah.
seconds.
Commercials are very short movies.
Especially if he's like, when you play with power, you play with superpower, or whatever the fuck that tagline was. Nintendo don't what Nintendo don't. No, that was
You nailed
Sega.
it.
I blew it.
The only other note I have is that when Laurie's shooting at him at the end, she shoots him, and you remember the blood starts pouring out his eyes?
Yeah.
She must have shot him right in the eye holes.
Yeah.
both
She's a good
times.
shot.
There's no bullet holes. There's no bullet holes in the mask.
The injection that they gave her earlier boosted her accuracy stats.
Nice. It was like a Metal Gear Solid kind
Yeah.
of
she
boost.
smoked. She took a drag of a cigarette, and it slowed her.
Yeah, so
slowed
she could
down
steady her aim.
heart rate. The thing that
As
I
weird
love,
as that was, I did kind of like it. Just the tears.
No,
of
it was
blood
awesome.
Cool, yeah.
the thing that I love
Yeah.
about Michael Myers' eyes is that they're impervious. He gets stabbed directly in the eye in the first
The
one.
coat hanger, yeah.
With the coat hanger, and then this
Mhm.
he gets shot in both eyes. I wanted to go back to the Resident Evil thing I was talking about. There's a lot of monsters in Resident Evil games that just kind of flail wildly. There's also one that can only attack you if it like senses movement. But the scene in this near the end where he's just flailing wildly felt so much like a fucking video game. Like they're like she's just back against the wall trying not to get flailed at. Loomis is in the background, and that we sort of go to like the end sequence here, which has some of the coolest shit I've ever seen in a movie.
Sorry, not to cut you off. There in Resident Evil 4, there is like a blind monster that you have to fight, and you're like in a room of like hanging bells, and you like hit the bells, and it comes over. It's like the same thing that they're doing with the gas tanks. Yeah. Resident Evil totally bit this movie in so many fucking ways. The fourth one, especially.
I think Resident Evil actually is the anthology prequel, or not prequel, precursor to.
Well, you know what they say?
Story.
Evil can never truly be killed.
Evil truly can never truly be killed. The
Truly, you
classic
cannot truly
saying.
kill evil, as they say.
There could be only one.
Yeah. Evil never
truly,
dies, I believe, is
evil
what
truly
Just changes
never
forms, which is a big thing in the Nightmare on Elm Street movie.
yeah.
Is that you guys? I'm jumping ahead like 5 years, but have you seen Wes Craven's New Nightmare?
I have. I like it a lot.
It's great.
Have
'Cause
you-
That's the whole thing with that is that like like the character Freddy exists. It's super meta. The character Freddy exists in the movies, but then they stop making the movies, and then it's like, well, that evil has to go somewhere, so it comes into like real life instead of the movie.
It's basically like the theory of like manifestation, where if enough people believe in something, it will become real. And Freddy Krueger is like, yeah, he's like. He's manifested into reality. So Wes Craven is like an actual character in the movie who's like, what are you talking about? He's just a character.
Wes Craven made Urban Legend, didn't he? Which is literally that.
I don't think that was him though.
But he made Scream, which is also super meta as well, right?
Yeah.
There was, I think his original draft for New Nightmare was that he wanted the character of Wes Craven, played by him, to be like a manic, insane person who's writing a Freddy script in the back of a van while driving around America trying to escape Freddy constantly. And he's gone crazy.
They really pared that down into just having him paint a picture of Freddy.
Yeah.
Robert
But
was doing that.
he had done this thing where he'd like removed his eyelids and he was on like pep pills to stay awake. So he's just like this crazy version of Wes Craven. Like that would have been a pretty insane movie.
I'd watch that.
I need to watch literally all the movies that come after the sequels. I think that maybe we just turn this podcast into each week is the next 4 of the Familiar Killers. Each week we just do the next 4.
I mean, I'm not against it. I love the horror sections of our years.
It's true.
I'm super excited to be here for this. I think I said that, and I'm honored to be your first guest, and I'm just super stoked that I get to come into this position, like within maybe my favorite horror like franchise. I don't know. I think as a franchise, Nightmare on Elm Street might be my overall favorite, but like definitely Halloween was my favorite horror movie. So I'm glad you guys had me here for this movie specifically.
Yeah, I'm excited. Go ahead.
How many people died in that explosion?
Like
at the end?
Who knows how many people were in that wing of the hospital?
I mean, to me, it seemed like it was just that room that got blown up, right? Like,
but you see the explosion from the outside. Like,
I really zoned out the last couple of minutes. I'm not sure what happened at the end.
She was really like just outside the door when it blew up, and she survived. So
that's true.
But also,
Loomis survives.
But Loomis
they mentioned at a point though. They mentioned a body count at some point, like about 2/3 through the movie, that was like way higher than what we see on screen. Like there's all kinds of deaths that have happened that we're not aware of.
Yeah, I think it was like meant to be implied that on his way to the hospital, he killed a shitload of people.
Slashing through. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
He loves killing, or it's just he's compelled to, I guess. He's the manifestation of pure evil. Yeah. Oh, Michael.
We get that weird scene where she is like a trance state, and she's having like Laurie's having like a flashback to, I guess it's that clue that she was put up for adoption very young. But what was
those flashbacks were.
But it's weird because like, was anybody a diehard for film at that time to be like, holy shit, that must be her as a kid, and who's that woman? Oh my god!
I mean,
it's Michael's mom.
I think, it's designed to be speculative, right? Like you're supposed to watch that and it's supposed to elicit some sort of like thought process to be like, what's going on here? I don't know if anybody was figuring it out in the moment that it's like, okay, that's probably Michael Myers because he's in some sort of weird asylum. Is she just dreaming and having like a hallucination that she knew him as a child? Is this happening for real? But then, within the movie, they confirm it. It would have been cool if they didn't, but I guess they needed a reason to have all the police officers in Loomis show up.
Well, nowadays
hospital.
I would 100% like. There's the way I watch TV and movies. I would be putting things together, but even in the context of this movie, I was trying. Like I still do that with these old movies, but it didn't translate that way. It didn't make any sense. It was just confusing. The fugue state she was in was confusing. It was like the way that it's written is very like just full on. Suddenly, it's a mystery.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't get the same experience because I already knew that they were related, so it's not. It wasn't surprising to me, and I wasn't going through like the thought turmoil of like, what's going on here? I was just like, oh yeah, they're Sibling.
Yeah.
guys-
I
Oh,
forgot.
now they're revealing it. Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys all know how I feel about spoilers, and could you imagine my shock when something like this was kept from me for literally 40 years? Like, literally almost 50 years. Like, I'm 37. I never knew once in my whole existence that Jamie Lee Curtis's character Laurie was the secret sister of Michael Myers. My
Awesome.
mind, like, I had a Luke, I am your father moment, which is crazy to think about. Think about M. Night Shyamalan movies, for instance. Them shits get
Right.
spoiled 2 years after they came out. Or would get spoiled.
Sometimes within the week.
Within the week. Like, the movie
Yeah.
comes out
Yeah.
and they're like, he sees dead people.
I was on the way to see The Village, and somebody in the car ruined the twist for me, and I was like, "What the fuck is your problem, man?"
That's rough.
Yeah. Couldn't you have waited for 2.5 hours to say that? Like, what the
That
fuck?
one I know, but I don't fully, like, I've never seen The Village all the way through, so there's some context that may be missing for me, luckily, because it's one of his better movies, as I understand. Lady in the Water, I actually don't know what the twist is. So
No, me neither.
There's
no
not
one ruined
really-
that for me.
that
either.
one
no one
doesn't
ruined
really
Lady in the
have a
Water. I
twist.
want to watch a Paul Giamatti movie real soon.
Like, that's also the misconception, is that every single M. Night Shyamalan movie has a massive twist that is meant to blow your goddamn socks off, but not all
Well,
of
his
his
first like 4 did. Like Lady
Yeah.
in the Water. Like other than that, like they all did.
But like
Unbreakable
Signs doesn't really have a twist. Unbreakable doesn't really have a twist. That it has a twist, but it's not like a
It's not like a mind-blowing twist. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really just
It's more
a
like
double,
an interesting
it's
reveal.
like a double turn.
Yeah.
Great fucking movie.
Great fucking.
And then
movie.
they made
I
Twist
only
in
saw that-
Signs is
for
that
some
they
reason.
were real. There was actual aliens.
Yeah, but also like the stuff, them being allergic to water, like in sort of like in War.
I
of
thought that was the
Worlds.
twist.
Yeah,
The movie,
Which is so
Old, that
fucking
came out-
stupid. Like our planet's like 80% water. Why would the goddamn aliens who can't touch water come
the
here?
War of the Worlds aliens got killed by the literal common cold. So like,
But that's so tiny, so little, Jason. You can't see it. They can't see that from space.
it's good writing.
From space, you can see the oceans from
It's
space.
the 1940s. Nobody there's like 6 ideas.
They wanted
They're
our
like, what if
gold.
there's aliens.
Yeah, it was the 1940s. They like humans couldn't even see the common cold. Like we didn't even know what the common cold was in the 40s. It was just this
We
thing.
thought it
Do we
was
know what
a
viruses were in the
touch
40s?
of the what's it, touch of consumption.
Yeah, they were
Yeah.
too busy trying to figure out polio.
I got a death of mug from being too cold. I love the there's a couple of good silhouette moments in this movie where there's one great silhouette where things are happening in the foreground and Michael Myers is in the background, but I really love when he walks across the parking lot and he's lit up red at first. And
That's how
then
you know Freddy's watching.
so Freddy was also there.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed that. I don't have a lot of notes.
If you listen really carefully at that part, you can hear from the bushes, "Bitch," just off in the distance. Yeah.
That's
No,
a
bitch.
no word.
No bitch
Yeah.
in Freddy Part 2.
No, he doesn't really hit that hard until like the 3rd and 4th movie, where it somehow just becomes his catchphrase. I don't know how. And then
Yeah.
Rick and Morty really
And
kind
the
of
6th one.
made it crazy. Yeah.
He gets home
Also,
from work
the
and he's
movie
like,
type
"Hi,
shut up.
bitch.
Hi, bitch. Aw, bitch.
I had a hard day at work, bitch." Let's see here. I'm just going through the end of my notes, and I think we've covered pretty much everything. So we can probably talk about the ending of this movie.
Yeah.
Which is one of the
It's kinda
coolest things I've
good.
seen. There hasn't been a good flaming slasher since, and we'll say exactly what we mean by that, since the first
Freddy
Chucky.
2.
Oh yeah, I guess
Gay
that does
joke.
happen.
No, I was
Oh, yeah,
making
he
a gay
gets he
joke.
goes right on.
Oh, you were
But-
doing it. You were doing a gay thing.
Because it's really homoerotic.
It's the most homoerotic horror movie.
Extremely.
If you're watching our TikTok,
But I think Freddy is also on fire because at the pool party, like, doesn't he like come out of the barbecue or some shit and he's on fire?
He jumps
he
through the.
bursts
He
into
go.
flames
There's
at
one
the
point
end,
where he
doesn't when he's
goes
melting?
through the fence, like he like.
Oh yeah, the
phases through
fence is all on
fence,
fire. Yeah, yeah.
and it catches on fire when he goes through it. And then I think when I saw that, I was like, "Oh, he went back to hell. That's the hell door."
If
You
you're
can tell
watching
'cause
our
there's fire.
if you're watching our TikTok
fence.
stream, that part actually just happened in the movie where. So I'll just lay it out there. Michael Myers gets shot in both of his eyes, right?
I guess
By
you can
super
still
After
see
being
his
stabbed
eyes.
in the previous movie like an
Yeah.
hour ago.
But yeah, he's got no eyes left now. By super assassin Laurie. He's flailing wildly, which is the best. I want to go back and just watch him flailing because it's fucking cool.
The noise the swiping noise
The
is
sound
quite
design
good.
in this movie, man.
It reminded me of Big Trouble in Little China a little bit, like the sound design for this swooshing kickers
Like
and
kicks
punches.
sound like
Yeah.
when a punch sounded like.
Reminds me of Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Mac just going when he's doing his karate.
He's trying to go after Laurie, who's like huddled in a corner. He's like getting pretty close to her. Loomis is stabbed, but with his like dying breath, he doesn't die. Spoilers. With his dying breath, he's undoing ether. And I was like, oh, they're gonna knock him out somehow. Nope. Then he undoes oxygen.
The whole time I'm like, he has that lighter. He's gonna burn. He's gonna burn stuff.
Chekhov's
the lighter. Chekhov smoking lighter.
As soon as he opened the oxygen, I knew it was coming next. They bail. He fucking lights it up. It explodes. They think everything's good. Nope. We get flaming Michael Myers walking down a hallway looking like a flame monster nightmare man, which is one of my, to me, might be the most iconic moment of any of the movies we've done. Even though they literally did that in the first Chucky, Chucky movie. That was a little different.
Forgetting Chucky 2.
Well, those are more about the end of it, Chucky being melted as fuck, and that being sort of the gross bit.
He was like a gross goo blob monster. You fucking hard! Just trying to kill them. Like,
but
then he
Michael
gets popped.
Myers walking down a hallway on fire is so cool.
Yeah, it is cool. You know, nothing really beats a man on fire in any movie, especially when it's practical. It's true, man. A person lumbering on fire is always good if it's used.
Oh man, well, going back to again Nightmare on Elm Street, the first one, because she tricks him into going into the basement and sets him on fire in there, and then like the stuntman walked way longer than they were expecting. They were just like, go as long as you can stand up, and then we'll fire extinguish you, like whenever you fall down.
He also
they
tried to
did
like,
not
climb
expect
the
him
stairs
to
a
go
little
up
bit.
those stairs.
Yeah.
He was not
Then
supposed to climb
fell.
the stairs, but he was like, I'm fucking doing it. And then
Yeah.
he tripped, and then he kept going. So, like that's my favorite Man on Fire is the first Nightmare on Elm Street.
I think Denzel.
But this is also not the last time that Michael Myers is on fire. Spoiler alert.
Galen made a good joke, by the way.
What'd you say, Kalen?
Denzel Washington might be my favorite Man on Fire.
I know saying your joke again isn't always the best, but I'm glad that we went back and heard you out because that was good.
I know we're talking about scary movies and shit. I just heard a noise behind me. I don't know what the fuck it is because my family's upstairs in bed. My animals are all upstairs.
So
I'm gonna go see what's making noise.
I went to Craig's house on the weekend to visit in Newmarket, and this motherfucker lives in a house that looks like is on Elm Street. It's very nice. It's a very nice home, but it looks
Eagle Street.
It looks like it's haunted as fuck.
A Nightmare on Eagle
A
Street.
Nightmare on Eagle Street. Let's just
There's
dox
no one in my
Craig
bathroom
completely.
except
You
maybe
have
a
your-
ghost.
You have your last name in your Zoom call. We told you told everybody
that's
the
true.
town you live in and the street you live on.
Yep. There's
Like,
only
you should be
like
concerned about
200
that noise.
houses on
Yeah.
the street.
Yeah, that's
It should be. I don't know. Like it's a fairly. I mean, it's a new house to us, so I'm not familiar with all the noises. It's probably normal. It's probably just like our
Yeah.
plumbing
Well, if we know-
adjusting to the temperature or something.
If you know
all
anything
math
about
fan.
Michael Myers, it's that he'll kill everybody on your street to get to a hospital.
It's true.
Ding ding ding.
Or anything about Freddy is that he will also kill everyone on my street.
Yeah, do you have a boiler room in your basement?
No, but I have a sump pump, which is weird. Do you guys know what a
Oh, no.
sump pump is? It's like this
Yeah.
well. I have a well in the corner of my basement where just like the water drains out and gets pumped
Yeah.
out from like when it rains outside. Water
You have to turn
like
it
comes
on
down
and
the
off.
walls of our house and then gets fucking pumped out.
Pumps
We had
your
one
sump.
at the escape games. We had to turn it off during games, and we had to make sure to turn it back on at the end because
Yeah, you
it
do.
would flood. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, you don't want that to happen. Ooh, we don't want to flood
Yeah.
at the escape room.
Which
It happened once, and they thought
has
it was
its
part
own
of the
different
game.
escape room.
Yeah. Sludge monster.
All right.
Also,
Fred.
no movie title shout out.
No movie. Well, I don't think. Did they mention that it's Halloween? I don't think they're
We're
gonna
going
do
out
that.
for
Did they say
Halloween
the word?
tonight. We're going out for
Halloween
Halloween too. Yeah.
That would actually be genius. And if I ever make a movie, if I ever
So-
have a movie series and there's a sequel that has like some name like that,
There is a movie called Deathstalker, and in the sequel, Deathstalker 2, there is a part where the villain of the movie watches Deathstalker escape, and she goes to the screen right up to with her face close, and she says, "I will have my revenge." And Deathstalker 2, like Deathstalker 2 comes up on screen.
I think both of those movies are on my to watch list, but I haven't seen them.
I've only seen the first two Deathstalkers, but the first one is like a straight up bad, like Conan ripoff, but it's real rapey and
I've
a lot
got
of
it
boobs
downloaded.
and,
It's on my.
And then the second one is like,
which of course I
very
purchased
PG.
legitimately off of iTunes.
And then the second one is super duper campy and PG-13 ish.
worst
I don't know about the third
$3.99
one.
you ever spent. Actually,
Did you guys know that this movie was supposed to be in 3D, and then they realized that it was too dim, so they couldn't do it?
I didn't know that,
Yeah.
but I can't wait till you guys get to Friday the 13th Part 3 because they lean into the 3D and
They're
that
like,
one.
yeah.
You want to talk
stabbing
about the opening credits in Friday the 13th movies? Wait till you get to the Friday the 13th.
My red and
3D
blue
opening
glasses
credits.
came in yesterday, or the day before.
Kaylin just ordered some
Nice.
to watch it the
Holy
way
shit,
it's meant to
that's
be
awesome.
watched.
I mean,
and then,
it's the only reason
Freddy
to watch
Part
it.
6 is also 3D.
Freddy Part 6, is that the new no,
What is it called? Not New Nightmare. That was
not the
7.
Dream Warriors, because that's the
Freddy's
third
Dead.
one.
Freddy's
Freddy's
dead.
dead.
Yeah.
Prevent?
Freddy's
No.
Dead. Roseanne and Tom Arnold are in it as in a hilarious cameo.
Is that one the movie's been around for so long that it's like a Gremlins 2 situation where it's just a bunch of nonsense thrown together?
A
For
little
Scream,
bit, yeah.
Scream 4, where Jay and Silent Bob show up in it for like 2 seconds. Or not the fourth one, the third one.
Snoiky joinchies or whatever.
Yeah.
Snoochie Boochies.
Yeah. Let's go smoke a pot.
I smoke weed. Cool. So I think we've covered everything from the movie now. What do you say we go into our
Well,
final
do we want
thoughts?
to do favorite kill like we usually do for these?
Yeah. Okay. Guest goes first. Craig, what was your favorite kill from the
The
film?
one I don't know if I have a favorite. The one that sticks out to me is the therapy pool when she's like, "Oh my god, it's so hot. Just go check the temperature," and then she gets her face boiled off. Because they went real excessive with it. Like I think they showed him dunking her like 5 or 6 times.
4 or 5 times.
Yeah.
for sure.
And she's already
And she-
dead.
And been getting up.
She's already dead. Like she's stopping, like she's screaming, and then like she stops moving, and he just keeps going. He's just like, "I'm gonna make a soup out of you, lady." That's what he says. They cut it out. But it's
lady
a deleted scene.
soup.
He's like, "I'm making you a soup.
The character that
Get a nurse. Get a nurse in a hot tub. You got a stew going."
You got a stew
That's what
going.
he says.
the character that traditionally says nothing says, "I'm going to make a soup out of you, lady."
No, he says baby. It's Mike Myers.
Groovy, baby. Soup.
This is me in a nutshell, baby.
How did I get into this nutshell? Okay, Kaylin, why don't you go next? Why don't you tell us your favorite
That
kill?
was the one that kind of was memorable for me as well. The jacuzzi thermo. What's it called again? Therapeutic.
Therapy pool.
Therapy pool.
The funny
yeah.
thing about those therapy pools is every other time you see them, they're not being used as a jacuzzi, but instead in an insane asylum for somebody to be medically treated from their insanity in an ice bath situation. That's how
They also have them in prisons, and they
In
baptize
prisons.
prisoners in them
Yeah, so I
when they turn to God for their crimes.
I've seen those in horrible. This use of it was more off-putting than any of the kills in the movie because I was like, they're just gonna fucking rock out in this jacuzzi, in this therapy pool. They've turned into a jacuzzi. I was like, gross.
Let me tell you something about the 80s, Jason, and jacuzzis. That's all that happened in jacuzzis in the 80s, as far as I'm aware.
People were getting STIs left and right. People were getting not even STIs.
Yeah, that's where AIDS came from.
AIDS came from a
Didn't say that.
jacuzzi.
Therapy
Forget
pool.
It no, not STIs. That's not what I meant to say. Just urinary tract infections. Just everybody's urinary tract was just filled with infection from jacuzzis. Steve liked that.
Yeah,
You can
fucking
tell
in
by
a
the
jacuzzi
look
is
on
a
his
bad
face.
idea.
They used to call it the UI 80s. That's what they called it. The jacuzzi era.
The jacuzzi era of the UI.
What do you think? The U and the I and
UI.
Yeah, exactly. You can't spell
Not gonna commit
jacuzzi
to that
without
one.
UI, brother. Sorry, Kaylin. I took your joke and I said more.
No, you made it better.
I said
Yeah,
more
I think
things.
that was a writer's room moment where you improved upon the concept. I guess my favorite one
Yeah,
is
let's go.
not a death, but I really liked when Jimmy, the last starfighter, slips and hits his head on the blood, and then later is like
That was
super
awesome.
duper concussed and is trying to talk to her, but his eyes, he does a very good job of being like, I'm fucked up right now. And you know he's gonna honk the horn. You know it's gonna happen, but it takes a little bit longer than you think, and then it happens, and then she pulls him off, and his head goes so far back that my response was, he
that
broke
was
his neck.
fantastic.
His neck is broken.
Like the
broke
actor
it.
broke it. He leaned into it too much, and
now he's
they haven't
actually dead.
reported
That's how
on it.
Halloween 2 became
He's
a
actually
snuff
dead.
film.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm gonna look at that guy's credits and make sure this wasn't the last movie he made.
No, he was in The Last Starfighter. I keep calling him that because he's in it. He's
And
the
what's
main
funny,
guy.
what's
I thought he
funny
was-
about that to me too is like they didn't know a lot about concussions in the 70s, so or the 80s for that matter. So she just let him go to sleep. She didn't try to wake him up. She didn't like. She just let.
I mean,
him.
she had bigger fish
if I
to
were in her
fry.
position, that would probably be the least of my concerns.
She was trying to not fall asleep herself, remember?
Yeah.
That's true. He's got CTE now, and he probably I don't even want to say the unspeakable things that people with CTE do.
Am I just forgetting that he survived, or did he die? Like, I don't know. I cannot remember
I
if
think
we
he
see him
survived.
again later.
He's just concussed. He's taking a nap.
Didn't one of you say?
I mean, to my recollection, he was left in the car and we never saw him again, right?
Yeah, that's what I think too. I just wasn't sure if, like, at the end when the ambulance is driving off, you see Jimmy like rubbing his head, like, "Oh,
Hey!"
what happened?" or something. Yeah. I need treatment for my fractured skull.
Good thing he's
Get
out
me
of
some
hospital.
asprin.
Yeah, good thing he's out of hospital.
I got a killer headache.
Head wound Harry.
Mr. Sandman, bring me a drink.
So this movie is bookended by that song, and I love that song. And it reminded me of how Freddy 2 is bookended by an old-timey doo-woppy kind of 50s song. Must have been the style at the time to do that. Mr. Sandman worked especially well.
I feel like
into that.
there's a bunch of movies like that. Like
I think
it's
Mr.
kinda
Sandman
just
would have
an
worked
80s.
better for
Freddy?
Absolutely.
For sure. I don't really understand what the symbolism or like meaning of Mr. Sandman being in this movie was there to represent, other than
I think it's just the closest thing they had to like a 1950s song about a boogeyman.
Yeah, it was kind of creepy.
True, yeah.
juxtaposition. It's
Maybe it
like
was the
that-
contrast or whatever,
Yeah.
because it's kind of like light and fluffy or whatever.
for
you know,
sure.
just
Yeah,
from-
I'm not saying it doesn't work. I'm just saying I didn't really fully get the connection or like why they would choose it. It would make
Yeah, it's kind of a
way
piss
more
off they wasted it on Halloween when it would have worked for Nightmare.
for Freddy. Yeah,
Yeah.
Freddy could not do it after that.
Yeah.
But I think the connecting it to the boogeyman, I had forgotten that they were referring to him as the boogeyman earlier. Makes sense, I guess, because he comes for you at night when you're sleeping.
comes in you at night. So what we're gonna do now is ask
You didn't say your favorite kill.
me.
Yeah.
I was
After
trying to
your
gloss
gross
over the
comment.
horrible thing I just said. My favorite kill was the blood pool, the blood letting off screen. I did make a note in my notes that, and I think I mentioned this earlier in the show, that I really like the off-screen or implied kills in this movie specifically because, like I said, the special effects aren't really there in 1981 to look really good.
But
I
that
did-
pool of blood was awesome.
The pool of
It
blood
was.
looked
I like how red it was.
this
And it-
color of red that like doesn't exist, that but you know it's blood kind of thing. I really liked the therapy pool kill, but only because I really wanted to see those kids get boiled in that swimming pool in Freddy 2. So I got my like payoff in another movie, but I just like the fact that this guy just discovers a nurse who's been bloodlet. Her whole blood's on the ground, And then we get one of the dumbest things that we got a lot of mileage on to talk, and he slips and fucking bangs his head, and it's played.
That was so good.
And it's not played seriously. It's like boing when he hits his head, like almost.
Yeah, and he's just like laying there, like
laying
perfectly
there in a
straight
pool
on the
of
ground.
blood. And it holds that shot for like a second to be like, look how dumb this is.
Just a little
Yeah.
longer than it needed to be.
My thought
So
process
good.
was like, I've worked in a kitchen. I own like non-slip shoes. Did those exist in the 80s? And would paramedics not have them? I'm pretty sure
Yeah.
if they're working around
And
bleeding
would a
bodies all
paramedic
day.
also not be, cognizant of all the blood on the ground?
An ocean of blood on the ground? Yeah.
Yeah, and maybe be
Uh,
careful.
I did like that they were cutting back and forth to that blood dripping every once in a while leading up to that. Because I kept being like,
Yeah.
what? Whose blood is this? What is who's bleeding? What's going on here? Is that supposed to be paint or blood? Is someone painting somewhere? And then the reveal is quite satisfying.
I
But
like if
I love that Burton blood, that really, really red Burton blood.
if the special effects aren't there, like I love an off-screen kill if it's like elaborate like that. Not
Like
that,
the doctor staring at his fish tank.
Yeah.
I liked that too, and I liked that they recaptured that same shot from the first movie where she's backing up and he slowly appears in the darkness
Yeah.
behind. It was nice to see that again, I guess.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah,
Yeah.
we forgot to mention that the cool moment where the doctor is in his chair, and she turns him around. He's got a syringe in the eye, which is gross.
Yep,
Nothing
that
with
was
the
pretty
eyes,
sweet.
please. And then
And syringes.
Michael, yeah, and then Michael Myers kills the nurse who witnesses this moment, by just putting a syringe into her head very slowly. I think that's an underrated kill. Also, it's very cerebral. Not to be funny, but it's more scary as a concept than it is actually watching it. I think because who knows what was in that syringe. Who knows what the death actually was? If he
That's
put
true.
something into her, if it was just air, so that's even more nightmarish.
I assumed it was bubble brain. Yeah, just put a bubble in the brain.
Yeah. So
Yeah, probably.
compared to the
Sorry, my
to
door's
like,
knocked. Hold on.
it's like after this, Friday the 13th kills have to step it up a notch, even though the first Friday the 13th movie doesn't even come out for a couple years.
No, the first one was 1980.
Okay, so
For Friday the
this
13th.
is in sort of okay. So this comes out the next
Yeah,
year.
so now they're ping ponging back and forth, one upping each other.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
But when does Season of the Witch come out? Before 1986?
3.
So see, they just fumbled the bag completely with Season of the Witch, and then Friday the 13th Part 2 comes along in 1986, and it's like, look at all these kills. Let's.
82. Halloween 3 was the next year after
Well,
this.
when was
82.
Halloween 3 then?
That's what I said. Halloween 3 was 82.
Or Halloween 4? Sorry.
Fuck, man. You're making me look up a lot of things.
That one I think was a couple.
I think there was a bit. Halloween 4 was 19. That can't be right. 1999.
What?
That's not right.
What's the
Halloween
question?
4 is that H2O?
No, that one's 7.
That's
no,
gotta be
8.
wrong.
I think that one's 8 or not. I think it's 7 or 8 maybe.
Oh, 1988. I don't know. IMDb
Okay.
must have had some glitch. 1988 was Halloween 4.
Okay, so then you get Friday the 13th Part 2, and that's when the tides probably turn, and people are more about the more gruesome kill fest.
But yeah, you got Freddy, you got Jason, you got Michael Myers, all ruling the 80s, just like one upping each other, like seeing who can be the gruesomest. Like I remember Nightmare on Elm Street 4 had some crazy fucking kills. There was the woman who turned into a cockroach, and he trapped her in a giant roach motel until she like tore her own limbs off.
Where he turns
Yeah,
people
we'll
into
get there.
turns someone into a pizza, or like the toppings
Yeah.
on a pizza.
Or like
Really?
the toppings on the pizza, are like the meatballs, or like all the souls of her friends. Oh, it's fucking crazy.
And he's like, "Ew, pineapple," or something weird.
This doesn't belong here.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, we're gonna head into our final thoughts here. It's tradition on this show that the guest gets to go first. But before we do that, we're gonna do a little
Did
segment.
you say it's
on our show.
tradition?
We like
Yeah,
to,
that's the tradition.
we like to dive into the Instagram.
Listen, I'm the
of our
first guest. I
guest.
set the fucking tradition for
Sorry,
the
I was,
guests.
I was making a Hot Ones joke, and I fucking messed up the joke. So
The first
yeah,
tradition is the swear
it's
of life.
tradition on this show that we have our guest go first for his or her or their final thoughts.
Is there? Was I supposed to have final thoughts prepared for this? Because I think I've talked about everything I need to talk about. I hope you guys do have me back for. I hope that you guys like me being here. I hope you guys
I
like
did.
me
Okay,
in general, personally.
Here so what
I feel like you understood some of my references that would have went over the heads of the other two.
Yeah, for sure. Like I feel like me and Steven are like we got the horror movie.
Yeah,
like,
that's
deep knowledge
that's why
going
I
on.
thought this would be an excellent fit for you for this specifically this
Horror movies are my thing. I hope I can come back. Not necessarily for more Halloween movies, but for horror movies in general. If you guys want to have me back, horror movies are my jam.
What we usually do
particularly
here, though,
Halloween and Nightmare on Elm Street.
Our final thought usually includes a rating. These guys don't do a traditional rating like I do. I do it out of 5. These guys will usually say some nonsense that is usually funny. So just in summation, what's your final thought on the movie Halloween 2?
All right. Well, I didn't have any funny rating lined up, so I'm going to rate this one. In my personal opinion, I'm going to call it like a 6 to a 7 out of 10. I recognize that the larger collective of people who've seen this movie should probably rate it lower, just because horror movies generally get rated lower than dramas and whatever else. Great things about this movie, like I loved, again, as I mentioned off the top, that they did away with having an act 1. They were just like, just pick up, like let's make a 90-minute movie, but we don't have to have the half hour of introducing characters and re-explaining what the plot is. Just fucking go. Jason or Freddy, what's his name?
Michael
got up off the ground, and
his name is Mike Myers,
baby.
baby.
We just gotta keep going. It's fucking
I shot him 6 times.
Great. I thought the plot, the story, John Carpenter's story was great, despite or maybe because of him being absolutely hammered while writing it. I think that's probably about it. That's my final thoughts.
See, that's what I meant by final thoughts. So you'll be prepared for next time when we have you back as the new 4th member of the show. No, sorry to get your hopes up. We have 6 viewers on Twitch, and I'm sorry, but we can't share any of that with you, my man. I'm just kidding. I don't know what I'm talking about anymore.
Yeah, no, I don't know what you're talking about either. So we're on the same page.
Kaylin, why don't you give us your final thoughts?
So, unfortunately, I felt this was a bit of a sleeper. Craig, you made a great point. I completely agree with you. That it was great that it just starts right off where the last one is. You don't have to worry about character building, exposition, so to speak. But for some reason, it didn't grab me as a whole. It was worth the watch well enough. Part of me almost kind of like the first Halloween. I think is great and stands alone on its own fine. Adding this almost to make the first Halloween and this just one big movie would elevate this, but then de-escalate or whatever the first one. So like that wouldn't work either, unfortunately. Steve, you made you mentioned before, and I think that it would have been helpful to do it, and maybe we'll look at it for next time. But instead of ending, like I totally understand ending on Halloween because we're at Halloween, but to watch them in order of release. So like, this Friday, Chucky and Freddy, or Freddy then Chucky, I forget the order specifically, but I think it's Freddy then Chucky. I think for us, like watching it and reviewing it would kind of work better that way with how the production value is increased with those later on movies for those new characters. And like you mentioned, trying to one up each other, it gets to the point where what it kind of evolves into is they're just trying to one up the previous film / the previous or other films that are trying to copy what the original Halloween kind of created or jump-started, pioneered, if you will. What I will give it, though, is I give it a being trick or treated to death.
Oh my god!
Just like the neighbor. You don't know what death is, says Loomis.
All right, yeah. Thank you, Kalen. Steven, why don't you hit us with your final thoughts, my man?
Okay. I think this movie is very watchable, but I also recognize the fact that if you've not seen the first Halloween movie, you'll be pretty confused as to what the hell's going on.
That is the downfall of not having a first act, is that you have to watch the entire movie to get caught
it's very rewarding to somebody who's watched the first movie, but I cannot imagine going into a movie theater and watching this with like a date, having not seen the first one, and enjoying this at all. Yeah.
Why is he killing everyone?
Was he in the first
that
one?
guy, the guy from earlier?
Is this security guard a main character? I feel like everyone is so far.
Am I supposed to know who she is?
Yeah, is Jimmy like the main character?
He's the guy,
No.
so he's got to be the main character. Actually, the girl is the main character.
Yeah, I think that, like you guys have said before, that the jumping off right at the end of the other movie is super cool. And you know, I didn't watch any of the other Halloween movies in between the last year and this year, and just that little tiny sliver that they reshot at the beginning of this movie just jump started my whole brain of being like, oh yeah, I remember the entire end of the movie now just from seeing that little snippet of Loomis and Laurie in the house together. And it got me excited to see where it was going to go. And it's been so long since I've seen this movie for the first time that I had almost forgotten all of it. I'm like, I know there's a hospital. I know there's some death.
My recollection is that there was a hospital and that it was the same night.
Yeah. And, you know, I don't think it's necessarily bad, but I don't think that it's great. And it's not something that I would recommend to people if they're not already a fan of the franchise. Unless, of course, you watch the first one and like the first one, then I would say, yeah, go give it a shot. You're not going to be as thrilled as you were the first round through, but you might get something out of it.
I'd say this movie of all of them is the closest you're going to get to re-experiencing the first one.
Yeah.
So, yeah, if you like the first one, this is the one to go to next.
The remakes are just sort of like a super grimy version of these movies where they're like, let's explain why he's crazy. It's because he was a redneck.
45 minutes.
Yeah, he's a redneck, and
it's because his mom was poor.
Because he played video games.
Because they were poor people.
And he lived in the valley. Okay, was that just your life, Rob Zombie?
Yeah, Rob Zombie's like, I am Michael Myers. I actually didn't mind some of the newer ones that when they came out. The one where she basically becomes elderly Kevin McAllister booby trapping the hell out of her house, I thought was a fun idea. But
I have a lot to say about those, and I really bit my tongue.
I completely understand why you wouldn't like them either. I just like the idea of her having a bunch of mannequins in her house and she's crazy. I'm like, I guess you might go crazy. Maybe we'll talk about them on the show one day. But yeah, I think overall, like, it's worth watching. And if you love the series, then you probably have some sort of soft spot in your heart for this movie. But I think the rating that I'm going to give it is Dr. Loomis pulling out his gun and about to shoot Michael Myers and realizing he's all out of bullets.
Wait, is your rating how many bullets out of Dr. Loomis's gun do you rate this movie?
I'll say that he's got 2 bullets left, but the chambers are empty when he shoots the first 3, like, damn it, and then okay. And Laurie hits the eyes. So there's a couple of hits in there, but a lot of misses.
That's pretty good. I'll say I liked this one a lot better than the original. It kind of is a spot of infamy about how much I detested the first one. I just was so bored, and I talked about it at the top of the show. Makes sense. It's objectively a good horror movie, but not for me. This one played to those what I like out of a movie like this a lot more. I really like creative kills, and I think that's what's going to drive me to just watch the rest of the Grimoire of Familiar Killers, as we call it, even on my own time, not just for the show. It's some of those boring moments where people are just kind of walking around and getting spooked in the dark, which, stop. I saw so much of that this month, and it's just a symptom of the era and the kind of filmmaking people did for horror at the time. And I'm sure it still happens, but I just need a little bit more, like, have superfluous plot instead of just somebody Ooh, what's that?
I feel like you need to watch The Exorcist 3.
Okay.
There is a very intense.
That's the first
shot
time
in-
that sentence has ever been spoken.
It's
since
No,
like
man.
the worst
movie.
one, isn't it? That's what people always
No,
say.
it's not. It's actually
No.
a very good movie.
It's not.
Yes, it is. I think you might be thinking of The Exorcist 2, the worst movie ever made, but the third movie is
Hot takes.
pretty good. Yeah. Anyway,
Okay,
sorry,
okay.
I'm trampling on your review. Go ahead.
I like that the kills are much more elaborate and there's more like payoff, setup and payoff though. The sound design in this movie is what really captivated me throughout. It has the same thing as the other movies where you know when the killer's around based on their iconic theme playing, but the other music that's playing and the like sound effects and stuff all really made me feel like I was more there. And I think that's because once you hit the 80s, sound and music sort of ramps up technology wise. It creates a great atmosphere as well. None of these movies had a burning killer, like a slasher man who's on fire, literally, this time around. You guys did remind me that Freddy does have that whole scene with the fire. But I really like the idea of like a Jason fully engulfed in flames with a machete just still killing. Like for some reason that's always that like even when I couldn't watch these movies, even when the most horror thing I ever saw was like Mortal Kombat video games, it still
Do you have the
captivates.
code for the blood?
Well, I mean,
I
Freddy
had it
versus
on
Jason, that's your dream come true. He's just going through a cornfield on fire, just hacking through teenagers who are drunk.
I love it. I love that.
There's so many of them.
I had it on Super Nintendo, so yes, I did have the blood code because he needed it for Super Nintendo. So the burning killer gets some extra pointage. It also
Excuse me.
It also gets like extra points for me for being set in the hospital, as I talked about at the beginning of the show, because it's like you don't see the hospital used very much, and it's so like visceral. Like you're right, like it doesn't feel good to be in a hospital. So watching a killer do kills in a hospital is especially like menacing. He's got that hooked scalpel, which for every time that he was just like menacingly brandishing it, I was just like, yes. Hospitals makes me queasy, especially compared to the woods or a house or a bright factory. Like the factory is a different thing at the end of Chucky 2, but like it's still not that scary. It's like it doesn't feel menacing to know.
It's stylistic.
It's
It's
stylistic.
Also,
yeah.
Nightmare on Elm Street too.
Yeah.
like, yeah,
A lot of factories.
they're at like a
this one.
burnt out refinery or whatever it's supposed to be.
Overall, listen, I rated this movie right after I watched it. Knee-jerk reaction. I gave it a 3.7 out of 5.
It's not that bad.
That matches with my like 6 or 7 out of 10.
I think that's appropriate. I don't think it's too high or too low. It seems high when you
No, where
say
we
it.
differ is I would give the first one a 10 out of 10.
See, I gave that like a 2.5 or some nonsense.
Yeah, so when it comes time to watch the third one, you're gonna make that a perfect 10 out of 10, and I'm gonna say it's a 1.
Fuck that.
That's what
No,
matters.
The
that
third
was
one
just
is
out of
wild,
5.
man. The third one is wild.
It is something.
Yeah.
But check, I was overly harsh on the first one. This made up for it by doing a lot of things right. And if you put 1 and 2 as a full movie, as we mentioned earlier, it's very good. The whole thing as a whole is a very cool story that ends with him.
I'd be kind of curious to do that. Just like edit the end credits of the first one and the beginning credits of like this one out, and just turn it into like
And
a
also
3-hour
cut
movie.
some of the fat. There's probably stuff you can cut out of both movies that kind of.
I guarantee you someone's done it online. For sure.
Probably.
So yeah, I think that, but in summation, him on fire walking down a hallway, still just like, I'm gonna fucking kill you. I say words because my name is Michael Myers and I'm known for talking. Which is a line from the movie. I don't know what movie you guys were watching.
Yeah, it's right after he said, "I'm gonna make a stew out of you, baby." Yeah.
Groovy.
So before we close the Grimoire for the year, do we want to update our ranking for the killers and which killer is at the top for each of us? Just before we close it down.
Yeah, let's do that. unfortunately, it is tradition on this show to have the guest say their answer first, but you've only seen one. I assume you're gonna.
I've seen all these movies.
I assume
I've seen
you're
them
gonna-
all.
but based
I'm
on
a huge
our
horror
based
fan.
on our universe, I assume you're gonna pick Michael Myers because it's the only one that you've seen.
Who we got? We got Michael Myers, we got Chucky, we got Jason and Freddy. Those are the four.
Those are the four we
those are
have
the
in the
four-
Grimoire so far. Yeah.
Yeah, those are the two.
And
those
we're
are the-
only basing it on the first two movies of
Yes.
each series, or okay.
I think in your case, you should try to do that. But if you have to, since you weren't here for the other ones.
I mean, Child's Play 2 I haven't seen in so long. Like, I don't even remember what happens there, so it's hard
It's
for me to
completely
kind of
different
rank
than these
Chucky.
other three. It's completely different than the other three movies we did. It's a different thing.
I mean, I think I would put Freddy at the point of, Jason at the point of his second movie. I mean, he's got to be at the bottom because he doesn't really kill anyone in the first one unless you count that boat scene at the end, which I think was a dream. I'm not really sure. They never really clarified that. And then he's wearing a fucking pillowcase in the second one. So I'm
don't worry, they don't clear it up in the third one either.
No.
They clear nothing up in that series ever.
No, never. It just gets more and more confusing. Yeah, Jason's at the bottom. I think I'm gonna put Chucky third because I don't remember the second Child's Play movie at all. And then it's between Freddy and Michael. That's a tough one. I think I gotta go with Freddy as the number one of all four. He's he's got emotional investment in Jesse in Nightmare on Elm Street too. Like he wants to become one with that character. Whereas Michael Myers, as far as we know, like sure they introduced the sister thing and that kind of just seems like shoehorned in, but it doesn't make a lot of sense. He's just like he's an unstoppable evil and that's cool and everything, but Freddy's got a deeper character going on by the second movie.
It's very soap opera to do that as a twist.
To do what?
To have
To make
it
them
be
siblings, yeah.
like their
The
siblings.
sister thing.
Your
Yeah,
long
like
lost
it's
sister.
it's not a genius move or anything.
No, and I don't even think it was a
But were they
genius.
first?
I don't think it was a genius move for the time because soap operas had already been around for fucking 15.
I mean, Empire
20
Strikes
years.
Back again already did it the year earlier.
Yeah.
That's kind of a different circumstance, I would say, because
Oh,
that came so out of
agree.
left field. I feel like for that particular thing, and it's well done compared to
yeah, it clearly wasn't planned because obviously Luke made out with his sister in the previous movie.
yeah, because
And that movie. That movie they
Did
kiss
they?
as well. Yes.
Stop kissing.
She
your
kisses him to
sister.
make Han jealous at the beginning after he gets smashed by the
Yep.
Wampa.
He's getting his hand fixed or whatever.
No, he's getting his whole body fixed.
Whole body fixed. Oh, he's in the
Uh,
Welcome to
Anyway.
the Star Wars segment of the podcast where we're going
Yeah.
to talk about all
Nope.
the Star Wars movies for
On
the
track.
next 7
Caleb.
hours.
Rank your
On
Star
track.
Wars.
on track.
Yeah.
Oh,
Caleb.
are we going to Muppetize this movie?
Nope.
No.
No, Caleb, on track.
So
We don't
for,
have time to
for this
Muppetize.
month for these four movies, I'm gonna have Chucky and Freddy tied for first, and I'm gonna have Mikey and JC tied for last.
Okay, that's pretty clear and concise.
And then I'm going to make them fight each other.
And then they're gonna be in a
This team versus
four-way
that
brawl.
team.
But they're also Muppets, so who are they?
Ding, 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 ding,
One of them
ding,
is an
ding,
actual
ding, ding,
doll,
ding,
so it gets extra meta.
Yeah.
All right, Steve.
Jason at the bottom, then Michael Myers, then Freddy, and Chucky's at the top for me. He has the most personality. I agree with the fact that Freddy is super invested in Jesse, and he's an interesting factor to the second at Nightmare on Elm Street, but he does not have as much personality as he does in the first one. And the fact that I know that he gains so much more personality as the movies go kind of lowered me a little bit. And Chucky, straight out of the gate, is just cursing and being verbose and over the top and yelling, and it's like, Andy, let me out of here, let me the fuck out. He's like, goes crazy
I am
in the
going to
closet.
watch Child's Play 2 like right after this.
Child's Play 2 is
You
very good.
are gonna like it.
You're gonna love
Yeah,
it.
you're not.
Um,
Like it's
so, yeah.
probably been 20 years since I've seen it, so I'm excited.
So Chucky is up the top for me.
I agree with all you guys. I would put probably I would go Jason, Michael Myers. Michael Myers has like overall moved up in my rankings because I liked him in this movie compared to his first one. But I still have Chucky next because I love Chucky. But so Steve, you've sort of had a decade to ruminate on the fact that Nightmare on Elm Street 2 is like queer cinema, and it represents a whole lot more. I learned
it means more to me, I think, than it does to like a lot of people that watch it, for sure.
That's true, but I also just like learned that a week ago. So I've been thinking about that the most. I've been thinking about what that movie means to queer cinema for a week, where you've been thinking about it for a decade. You know what I mean? So I put him above Chucky because Chucky's just doing the same old thing. And what we kind of came to the realization of for all the movies except for Michael Myers is it's just like a remake of the first movie, a lot like Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2. It's storyline different, but it just takes the first movie and just does it better for the second. This movie doesn't. This movie is such a continuation that it feels like Halloween 1 is the season finale, and this is the season premiere into what happens next. So I would move him up. Like if this movie sucked, I would almost put Michael Myers at the bottom. Like if this was like a bad sequel in the same kind of vein, if it was just the same thing over again, I don't think I would have gotten as much out of it. That being said, I think that the Grimoire of Familiar Killers closes with us all having completely different outcomes, which is cool. And
we should record it. I should make an actual grimoire.
Yeah, and if you read it, your face melts.
It'll look like the Necronomicon from the Evil Dead
With a little face on it.
I was me and my buddy were playing that new Tiny Tina game, and there's like a Necronomicon scene, and the guy just starts reading Latin out of it, and I'm like, if you find a book that looks spooky, don't start reading the Latin in it. Just don't do that.
Do not read the Latin in it.
Ade Due Dambala. Give me the power, I beg of you.
I beg of you.
So who are we?
Over it, Nick Doe.
Well, I'm obviously Jason because my name is Jason. I think.
And every time you are in a room and no one knows you're there, you go.
Steve is Chucky.
What?
Kaylin
You bitch.
That's no word.
I think Kaylin is. It might be Michael Myers.
Nice.
And Craig is the rest.
The Fredgy.
Fredgy Krueger. Yeah, I can see that. That kind of tracks. And if we were Ninja Turtles,
No.
Jason, I am Jason. And all right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching. For Steven and Kaylin and our guest this week, Craig, I'm Jason.
For Jason, for Kaylin, and for Craig, thank you for being here. I am Steven.
For Steven and Jason and our special guest, Craig, I'm Kellen.
Oh, special guest. For all of you guys, I'm Craig. I didn't know this was a part of the format.
It's a thing. And
yeah, thanks for having me. Really, this has meant a lot. It's been enjoyable. I love talking about horror movies in general, but particularly Halloween. So this was a very enjoyable 2 hours that I spent with you guys.
Before we go,
Hope
Craig.
to see you again.
Before we go, Craig. Before I ask you a very important question to our viewers, is there anything?
I gotta piss, man. Let's go.
Sorry, is there anything you want to plug?
No, I got nothing to plug. I've got a toddler running around.
He's gotta plug his penis.
I gotta piss. I gotta plug that up.
Hey,
So my wife's due date for our second kid is in like a week.
4 minutes.
So,
Nice.
Yeah, I don't have any kind of publicity going on for anything. I'm just like kind of battening down the hatches and preparing to be taking care of two children.
This might be the last time I see you for 2 years also, so thanks for being on. I love you, brother. But there is one important question that I have to ask before we go every week, and that's, hey, did you see this one?
Hey,
Nope.
Did you see this one?
I made this all up.
Hey, did you see this one?
I do this too?
I saw
You didn't prep me for any of this. Did you see this one? Hey.
Exactly what happened.
Did you see this one?
So I played the
That's what I'm going with.
I played the music for the end
Pick
of
the
the
best one.
episode, and now it says thanks for watching. Falls on Instagram
Jesus
still
Christ.
for some reason. So if there's anything that you want to say to me, we're not recording at all. We're not on social media.
It says
I see the
recording in
little
the
red
corner
button.
screen
It says
over
recording
there.
up at the top. But Child's Play 2 has downloaded.
Oh, that's
Um,
fast.
So I
Everyone's watching
got
it.
okay.
Well, I hope you
Everyone's
like it
watched
because it was definitely my favorite.
I'm sure I will. Like
horror we
the first
watched.
one's great, and I mean I watched the reboot they did like 4 or 5 years ago. I watched that one and enjoyed it.
It was
I
worth
remember
watching.
liking Bride of Chucky. I like that Jennifer Tilly just like she came in with Bride of Chucky and then just kind of like dug her claws in and stuck with the rest of the series.
Yeah,
and the
then
reboots
became
and
a
everything.
doll
Like, she's
herself,
not going
yeah.
anywhere.